everybody, and welcome to another Nextlander podcast. But not just another Nextlander podcast. Brad and Alex, this podcast is special for a number of reasons. Can you name
Yes, perhaps if you could list them in some kind of top 10 order.
Could you name one special reason?
This is the podcast in which we become outlaws by talking about 2021 Game of the Year games in 2022.
Alex, can you name another reason?
It's the first podcast in calendar year 2022.
You got both of the reasons. Okay,
Great.
That's right.
There's a lot of other reasons.
It's a new year and we're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Breaking the law.
Breaking the law. Breaking the law.
Well, now we can't put this up anywhere. Great. Fantastic.
Just gonna get a Viacom copyright strike for running Beavis and Butthead audio in this podcast.
I'm doing promotional work for them, damn it.
We are here to do our Game of the Year rundown business. We are, in case you missed it, in our third and what I assume is our final Game of the Year podcast.
Boy, buddy, if we make it to 4 Game of the Year podcasts, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we originally
There's only supposed to be 2 originally.
Yeah. But it's everything's a moving beast here. So it's a giant, fantastic beast, of a thing to do. So
go on.
It's a
going with that?
It's a podcast, and it's a big beast.
Uh-huh.
It's
a beast of a podcast.
It's a beast of a podcast. Anyway, I'm happy to be here with you guys to do this wrap up here. Let's just kind of take it over and see what we've done so far. So I'm gonna look at the big old list.
If you're tuning in for the first time,
that's right. Also, if you're tuning in for the first time, this is the audio version that you hear me in right here. And if you see me waving, you're watching the video version, which is available over on the Patreon. If you want to check that out, we're going to keep this again as an audio focused podcast. But if you want to see some visuals, you can go check that out over on the Patreon. Thanks everybody over there.
It's hot Google Doc.
Too hot. All right. So let's kick it off. Brad, why don't you take us down the list so far?
Okay. Best looking game was our first category. We have our own winners here.
Mm-hmm.
Kenna Bridge of Spirits for Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
Inscryption for me.
Mm-hmm.
Guardians of the Galaxy for thee. By thee, I mean Alex.
Yeah. This thee.
Yes. In the Wait That Came Out This Year category, we unanimously agreed that Outriders was the most Wait That Came Out This Yeariest. Hitman 3 and Mario 3D World on the Switch. Also hard to remember. Best throwback action platformer, Psychonauts 2 for Vinny and Alex. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for me. Kenna Bridge of Spirits, also in the top 3. Best Hitman 3 map. Could have been Dartmoor unanimous. Maybe should have been. I threw a bone to Berlin, which is also very good.
It's a hell of a map.
Berlin kicks ass.
And Dark Horse third here, the Carpathian Mountains Murder Train map.
The controversial pick.
Which, maybe don't do that again, but it was pretty cool to do it once.
Yeah.
I like that map as well. Very different.
Yeah. Yes.
So that was day 1?
Uno.
That was day
first,
1.
Yes.
All right. Well, how about day 2?
The best music unanimously went to Inscryption.
Oh, that soundtrack's so good.
Psychonauts 2 and Jett the Far Shore. I've had some Twitter interactions recently that I'm going to say Mario 3D World, or Bowser's Fury in particular, honorary 4th place.
Okay.
I'll accept that.
All
I'll
right,
accept that as an honorary.
I reviewed some more of the tracks from that I hadn't heard in a while. And
I also was exposed to a little more maybe that I hadn't heard.
It's delightful.
It's fantastic.
It is delightful. Best character went to Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy for the two of you.
Congratulations.
Leshy from Inscryption for me. Alex Chen from Life is Strange 2 Colors for no one.
Mm-hmm. Well, for
everyone,
really.
For everyone else.
Yeah.
The game with the zestiest zeal for life, the zestiest joie de vivre. The Artful Escape for me. Unpacking for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Toem, despite being black and white, also pretty lively.
Still very zesty.
Pretty chill, pretty upbeat.
It is happy about life.
Yeah. Makes you feel good. Best time loop was not Deathloop, despite having loop right in the name.
Mm-hmm.
It was Forgotten City for everyone. Also, the Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye DLC. Finally, the I Wish I Liked It More award went to 12 Minutes for me, Jett of the Far Shore for both of you, and Chicory, A Colorful Tale also in the mix.
Yes. Quick reminder about that one. Doesn't mean it's a bad game necessarily.
Not hardly.
Not necessarily. Just a game.
I mean, it means, if anything, it means we saw something in it that we did like.
Yeah. And just wish we liked it more. And that's...
I'll say it again. Jett the Far Shore almost made my top 10 anyway. So...
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. Today, we're going to be doing best story. So
Yes.
I'm going to say again, this one, folks, this one is the spoiler cast. This one is going to have the most spoilers. All the spoilers are going to be in this. Listen again.
An endless parade of spoilers.
Just kind of nothing but spoilers for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to go through here and exhaustively spoil every one of these.
You should assume we will, but we will try not to.
Assume those landmines are planted everywhere.
Anything could get spoiled. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to like exhaustively run down each of these stories before we get into it.
And then I'm even going to say like, hey, that's going to be best story. But by the time we get to our Game of the Year stuff, there could be a spot where I'm just like, remember what I said in best story for that game, and just drop a megaton spoiler right there. So I'm here to win. And,
just assume this entire podcast is radioactive and handle it accordingly.
So yeah, you can check all that stuff out in our previous podcast. But for now, let's take it over to best story, or best spoiler tags, best story, as I like to call it.
What are the games we've listed so far?
All right, let's run down. Alex, why don't you run down these?
Sure thing. The games we have written down for best story as of this juncture are Guardians of the Galaxy, Life is Strange: True Colors, Psychonauts 2, Mundawn, Ratchet and Clank: Rift Apart, Jett: The Far Shore, Outer Wilds: Echoes of the Eye, The Forgotten City, Lost Judgment, Deathloop, Genesis Noir, Unpacking, and The Dark Side of the Moon.
Don't that Dark Side of the Moon.
I'd like to propose an early cut to this list.
Okay.
Wow. All right, Deathloop already off the list.
I mean, look, Dark Side of the Moon has its charm.
You shut
does.
your mouth.
Is it really gonna
snaps his fingers and a plane explodes?
Yeah, that part's pretty good. I mean, look,
everything in that game that is Rupert Booth related is phenomenal.
Yes, but this is not best use of Rupert Booth, although maybe it should be.
I agree with you on that.
That was a pretty good moment.
That was very sad. And he's like an alien. Yeah.
But I mean, come on.
Fine.
I mean, look, if you really think it is top 3 material.
It's not going to make my top best story. It's
okay.
Okay. If this were best story in quotes,
like the biggest air quotes you've ever seen.
Yeah. Or biggest story, maybe. But yeah.
I really, I'm not going to say I came around on that game, but I kind of reframed everything for me when I went on the Steam forum for it. Have you seen this?
No.
And there are all these people on there complaining about how amateurish it is.
Oh,
and
what?
The lead actor in that game, who is also the developer and writer and everything. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
The father.
The dad, yeah.
Responded saying like, oh, thank you for giving it a shot. I'm sorry you didn't like it. This was just a passion project that we funded out of our own pockets. Like we hope you'll like our next game better or something like that. It's just like he was so chill about people saying awful things about his game.
Well,
you don't go into making an FMV. Look, you don't go into making an FMV game in this era without knowing that there is going to be a contingent of people who do not understand that there is a certain production quality that is inevitably attached to these kinds of games.
On this economy.
Yeah.
All right. Dark Side of the Moon. You told
pretty wild story.
You told a good tale. You're off the list.
Yeah. Alex, you're the only one that played Lost Judgment here. How are you feeling?
I finally wrapped that game up entirely. Took about 60 hours to do nearly everything in that game. And I think it is the weakest one of those games they have done story-wise, at least in the time that I have been playing them. I've not played...
Sorry, go ahead.
I've not played every Yakuza game to completion, but I've played pretty much all of the things that studio has put out since Yakuza 0.
Okay, so you're counting everything they've done, not just the 2 Judgment games?
Yeah, I'm counting just that general team and the things that they make.
That's pretty damning, I guess, for this category.
It's not bad. And the thing is, like, I say it's the weakest. I think the worst one of their stories is still a lot more interesting and involving than most game stories. But here, they're taking some swings that I just don't think entirely work. The crux of this story is that you are called to... There's like two cases going on. You are called to help out some old friends who are running a detective agency in Yokohama that have been called in to investigate bullying going on at this high school in Yokohama. And the other side of it is this guy who has been booked and arrested as a subway pervert that in the middle of his trial gets up and then declares that there is going to be a body found somewhere in Yokohama, and it is this person, and that and basically setting into motion this whole series of events that of course connects these things together into a much larger mystery. They don't get all the way there with it. They have to make some choices along the way to try and rope in this high school aspect of the game that I think has moments, but also feels very bloated. Like most of the sub-stories in that game take place in the high school, and you're just helping out all these different clubs and while also investigating this other case as part of that. And they block a bunch of mini games in front of that story, some of which are fun, some of which are very much not. And a lot of the payoffs for those stories are not interesting enough, I think, to justify the amount of time you have to spend there. The main story has some good characters in it, and there is some interesting... Like, I'm not an expert in what bullying in Japan high schools is like. I can only speak to my experience as an American, and there were aspects of it that felt very much like what I remember from high school, like the way kids treated each other and that sort of thing. But the way that they frame it here and the way they try to build it as like this kind of, linchpin of this much larger murder plot, there's a whole thing in there. And this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler here. I'm giving you this right now. There is a guy going around who is setting up revenge murders against bullies. And he is, roping in the family members of people whose kids, were driven to suicide or self-harm in various ways, and basically letting them get their revenge against those bullies because heavy. The system couldn't help them. Yeah, it's very heavy, but it isn't always handled well. I think there are aspects of that story that I think are really interesting, but don't go far enough. And there are other aspects that feel like they are just fumbling their way around a thing, trying to tell this real pot boiler mystery around it that just doesn't completely work. I think the ending is better than I thought it was going to be by the time I got there, but it takes too long to get to it. And there just isn't enough there to, I think, hold it all together.
Am I making this up? Do they block off parts of the story behind DLC, like some of the sub-stories or something? I feel like I remember reading you had to buy, or maybe the deluxe edition or something to get everything.
Yeah, so there's a few different things that are blocked off. None of it is super plot critical, but the stuff that is there, all the sub-stories revolving around relationships in the game, like girls that you can go on dates with. All that stuff is locked there. There's stuff involving one of the fighting styles and one of the school stories that is based around that fighting style, the boxing gym, that I think is kind of wrapped up in that DLC. And some of that stuff is actually some of the more interesting content in the game. It's kind of a bummer that they went and made that DLC, because it's that stuff actually fleshes some things out in a way and also has some of the more fun minigame aspects. So I don't know, it's not ruinous, but I think it is kind of a bummer they went that route, because they hadn't really done that with significant story content before.
Okay.
But I think it's a good story. There are other games on here I think told better stories and more surprising stories this year. This is a reliably interesting but weaker than average story for that studio.
Okay. All right. I'm going to use the power of word processing here. And replace Lost Judgment with one that I forgot to include.
Oh, okay.
Which, of course, is Inscryption.
How did that not get in there? Sure. What are we doing?
I think this was a loose list that we had made. And then,
it's always a mutable list.
Stuff,
I'm 100% with you. That belongs on this list.
You remember things as you're talking about stuff, right?
Yes. That's
now we're looking at the list again just to make sure we didn't forget anything else significant.
What else? Just refresh everybody's memory. House of Ashes. Did that do anything for you?
No. It was better than I thought it would be, but I don't think it's a best story.
It would go on and come right off.
Yes, I think we're probably at the short list now. Unless
I do think that is the best of the three Dark Pictures stories.
Definitely better than 2. Sure.
I think 1 is pretty good, but I think this one took some swings that could have really gone bad for them, and they mostly nail it.
Yeah, there's that one part I really like with the guy who's under the goo with the head.
Some good horrifying moments in that story.
That's pretty good. I like all these stories.
They're all pretty good. I don't think I'm going to get the support for Mundon on this one because, again, I think I'm maybe the only one who played through that game.
Yeah, I watched you play a chunk of it.
It's really cool, and folk horror is not a genre that has really made its way too much into video games in a significant way. And I really liked what they tried to do here. It's not a mind-blowing story by any stretch, but it is well told. The twists, what twists there are, I think are pretty well delivered. It's more that is very much a vibes game. Like I think that the story is a good component of that, but it's really just kind of the atmosphere and the visual style and the music and the voice acting. All those things in tandem make that experience what it is. The story is not by itself a standout.
Okay.
Right. I will say Life is Strange True Colors has a pretty good story in the margins. And I think the main story just kind of crumples at the end. So I think it kind of collapses in on itself in a way that somebody jerks the wheel a little too hard, I think, on that one.
Okay.
It's to me, it's kind of the opposite problem of what Lost Judgment had, which is that there was a lot of really interesting buildup in True Colors that can't get there. Like it can't find a way to tile those threads into something that doesn't just seem patently fucking stupid. Whereas Lost Judgment spends a long time building to something you don't think is going to be very good, but gets more there than you think they will.
Yeah, Life is Strange True Colors does pretty good interpersonal stuff in it.
Yes,
between the Alex and the characters of the town for the most part. I think, the bigger mystery or the bigger kind of Scooby-Doo-ness of the whole thing just kind of doesn't pay off. Or
that game, not literally, but like spiritually, does really end with someone pulling a mask off of a guy in an abandoned mine and going, "Old Man Winters."
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean,
it doesn't work.
It does. It doesn't really work.
Okay.
But
that's all I need to hear.
But the journey there again,
and the character work is really strong.
We're
I think
not
in a lot
talking
of
about
cases.
a literal rubber mask, right?
No, I said spiritually. Like it is basically what they do.
Okay. We all wear masks, Brad. Some of us. I mean, I think thematically there's interesting stuff going there. It's like I said, I think this came up in best character stuff. There's good stuff in there, good narrative stuff in there. But if you were to write down the bullet points on paper, and then you get to some of those end ones, you're like, no, I don't know if that's going to read too well. You're like, let's just do it. Life is Strange True Colors off the list. Let me talk about one that I think we're going to put a pin in, or I would like to put a pin in, and it's the Forgotten City. And the story in Forgotten City, I think, is A, well told, and B, just very interesting. I think it takes a couple of swerves here and there, and I'm going to try and do this without too much spoiler stuff, because if we don't have to do it, like we said, I don't want to do it. But I think it goes into places that are maybe tread a little in cliche territory, but are worth the dabbling in that. I think it is. It was for me, and I like silly sci-fi movies and fantasy movies and all of that stuff. I mean, you got a time loop mechanic in it. You have something's going to be going on in it, and I think it kind of delivers actually towards the end of that. And I think the wrap up in one of the endings, the one that I think is maybe the best ending, is kind of hokey but satisfying. So I think they kind of pull it all together in one of those ways where you have a decent amount of choice in the game. They funnel you into certain parts, but I kind of judge all of those by the KOTOR 2 standard, which is not good. So which is like, hey, we're just going to put a bunch of screens to show you who died and who lived and be like, Hey, this happened in your game, this happened in your game, this happened, and it doesn't do that. It gives you like a pretty nice wrap up to the game, almost like more like an Animal House style thing of like, this person went on to be the mayor of Forgotten City, and this person went on, like kind of more of that style. So I think Forgotten City, one of the better stories in both its telling and kind of where it goes. It's worth getting towards some of the narrative twists in it. And again, some people will think that's super hokey, and it's again dabbling in the kind of trite and cliche. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to kind of go through it, and it's got a lot of side story stuff too, and the personal stuff in it. I don't know if Brad, did you get to the one with the bow, and you have to swap the bow out, because that's a very good little bit of business.
I got into that one. I don't think I finished that one, but I did a pretty broad survey of that game, so I at least kind of touched most of the side stories from what I saw. That's
a very good one. There's a part where, if you've seen the game, you probably at least know that there are gilded statues that are in that area that, and this is a slight spoiler, but not really. It's very early on. They come to life and they attack you, and there's a kind of a whole tale about those. Yeah, that's kind of one of the main through lines, right? Well, there's kind of a horrific tale about somebody trying to investigate the nature of that stuff, which is also a pretty gruesome, but also kind of nice little bit of storytelling in there. So yeah, Forgotten City, well done. Not an extremely long game, but I think it's better off for it, because I think
I would totally back that on the short list. I would also add to that, I think like just the basic premise is kind of fresh. Like, not a lot of games set in ancient Rome. Let alone ancient Roman cities that are kind of out of time and underground.
Right.
And with a time loop, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of, it feels pretty original for a video game story.
Yeah.
To me.
Yes. And it goes into places that I think are, I wouldn't say fresh, but they're in the fridge at least.
Right. Just playing the first, say, hour of that game. It feels like something that you haven't exactly seen recently, if at all, in a game.
For sure.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, it's not as fantastic in a lot of ways as it could be, because it is grounded in actual Roman history, right? And I think I touched on it probably in the time loop category, that I love a game like this, like a fish out of water game that just lets the fish be very explicit about being out of water. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I love that it could just be like, hey, am I speaking Latin? Am I speaking English? What's going on here? I'm from the future.
Right.
Hey, did you know I'm from the year 2020? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if you're listening to this and you haven't heard of it, the setup is basically you're kind of stumbled into and trapped in this frozen in time Roman city with a population of like 12 people in it, and they're in this loop, and you're kind of reliving the same day over and over again, trying to figure out how to break the loop and interacting Groundhog's Day style with the inhabitants of the city to fulfill quests and solve a mystery. And but you are from present day, and you, like you said in the was it the character? Where was it? The time loop thing? You get to choose a class also, which is just kind of weird.
That's also kind of a neat. Like, that's more mechanical, but also kind of story a little bit. Like, especially again, if you pick the one that comes with a gun, it gives you some options for solving issues that you didn't have before. But how about I put a star next to that one?
Yeah. Hold it for now.
Yeah, it feels like so many games of that, or stories of that type, don't give you the option to just be very blunt. Like, they usually, like in a lot of cases, they kind of make you play along, right?
Yeah.
Try to blend in. I just love that you can just call people out on the fact that you're not supposed to be there and what the hell.
Yeah. Like, there's some good dialogue stuff in there too, where you're able to be like, oh, that doesn't, when you're talking to the, I forget what they call the mayor in there, but you're like, that doesn't sound very progressive to me. And be like, Rome is the most progressive city.
Oh, yes. You also, I totally forgot about that. Yes. You also kind of get to really call them out on some stuff, right?
Yeah. Like, we let almost anyone vote. Be like, let me tell you a little something about voting. So it's pretty good.
Let's see. Are there any others that feel like go?
I think I admire Genesis Noir more than I really liked it. I think they are trying to do some interesting things and kind of telling what feels like, sort of a noir story with this like kind of, galaxy brain sort of sci-fi, universe thing happening, but I don't know if I didn't finish it. I don't know if it got all the way there for me.
I don't know if it's going to make my short list. It is ambitious in its scope, and it's cool, and it's outside there, and it's unique. But it's also, I might not be smart enough to fully appreciate it, kind of thing. It's a thinking piece. It's not there to necessarily fill in all the gaps. It's there to be kind of this more mood piece and stylistic piece. But it's cool. It's it is an interesting take on the Big Bang and how that could be portrayed.
Go on. That's suddenly you've got my interest all of a sudden.
Imagine if the Big Bang was a gunshot, man.
Yeah. And it's jazzy. The whole thing is jazzy. So yeah, it is cool, but yeah, it's more of a kind of concept piece.
Yeah.
All right. Part of me could see Unpacking in the top 3 here.
Yeah,
less for the story it tells, which is extremely straightforward and like 2 sentences. If you were to describe it, the way it tells it is so unusual.
Yeah.
Or it's basically wordless. Like you do get the one kind of handwritten comment per living space, I guess I would say, right? Like every time you finish one of the apartments or houses, like the main character will scrawl just a little like light commentary, but other than that, it's like totally wordless, right?
Yeah,
all contextual, and yet it tells it's very effective at telling the story it's telling.
Like we joke a lot about environmental storytelling in games and like what a cliche it has been, but this is a game that actually does the work of making the environment the storytelling device and does it in a way that I think is really novel and doesn't feel like just that old cliche of I am literally writing the story on the wall for you, so I don't actually have to write a narrative beat for it.
Right.
Like it's just it's about a person's life and measuring that person's life across all the different moves they've made, and I think that's as good a measuring stick as anyone can have for like the big changes in their life.
Yeah, and like characterizing the main character, even though you never see the main character, right? Like you kind of get a pretty good sense of what her like life ambitions are and her tastes in movies and stuff like that.
Movies, games, relationships, like it's all there.
Clothing, underwear choices,
sure.
The number of bras they own.
I think it's also special in its ability to allow the person controlling it, or the player, to map themselves into what their feelings of these objects would be, right? The story you kind of come away with reflects how you feel about the things you're seeing in the game, not necessarily about how the character feels, because they never express an opinion on that stuff, right? So you're like, obviously these games need to be stacked in this order. This is how this character should do it. All the GameCube games go over here, and you don't put them like some kind of heathen over on a shelf sideways. You put them, stack them up like this. And clearly that character is how they would do it. Or clearly this character for me was like, all of this person's crap goes on this side of the closet, and my stuff goes on this side of the closet.
This is not the type of person to just stack all the extra toilet paper up on the top of the toilet tank.
That's right. That's right. And you kind of build this story in a weird, oddly role-playing fashion for this character. And I think that's pretty unique.
I guess there's almost like an emergent storytelling quality to it. I'm going to put a star next to that.
I really like it. I would definitely not cut it yet.
I think it's pretty interesting.
I don't feel like cutting it yet either.
Does Jett hang with all of your other issues?
It is a pretty cool story.
It is a good story. They're striving for some things in that story that I think a lot of video game sci-fi doesn't really fuck with. Like they're getting into kind of like the spiritual aspects of sci-fi, the idea of sort of building your entire society and your, what is essentially, the society's religion around, this calling, this signal that they've picked up on. And, the way the different characters interact with that, that notion, whether it's purely science-based or if it is actually part of, their religion, I think is the way they bounce that stuff off is really neat. And, the concepts that they are playing with, I think, are really neat. I don't know that I think the entire narrative works 100%, but it does work 90%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I really like the mix between there's dogma in it, which, you know, these characters have this mission, and it's a pretty mixed crew on like kind of specialty wise. And there's optimism, and they know that they are the last. I mean, they've been preparing this for the generations to do this thing, take this trip, and it's just not exactly what they hoped it would be. And there's a lot of parts of that story which feel like it's on a knife's edge for the mission, where like, is this the whole thing just going to fail? This is their kind of world's work here, and it's kind of going sideways a lot of the time. And I kind of like, I don't know, I like that tone of that game. It's
the stakes in it are delivered really well. Like they emphasize them without just constantly hitting you over the head with them, and the way the different characters, just, you know, the dialogue you have with different people on the mission. Like the way they sort of present that stuff to you, I feel like the stakes always feel very tense, even though the game itself is not really trying to like I said, like, it's not beating you over the head with that tension. It's just there constantly underpinning everything.
Yeah, I like how the whole mission has the feel of a pilgrimage. Like there's kind of a religious fervor to everything they're doing.
And that opening scene, like that whole opening where they, you know, you're walking through and like the big hand statue as the rocket takes off, like that stuff, that is genuinely one of my favorite scenes anywhere in video games last year.
I bounced off the gameplay pretty hard once it gets really deep into the spaceship stuff, but that first like hour of walking through those crowds in first person of people like chanting to you as you're boarding the ship or whatever, were like, that was like really affecting.
So good.
And you never, or at least I did not ever really truly understand the nature of the hymn wave and that what they call the hymn wave, and like what exactly is going on there. Is this a benevolent force? Is this a kind of malignant? You know, is it trying to force them into danger? Is it trying to save itself? Is it a calling? Is it alive? Is it just kind of it stays pretty opaque, I think, intentionally. And
it's not the kind of sci-fi that wants to explain itself in great detail. Like it is much more about the feelings and sort of the emotional weight of what they are trying to do. You know, like having that explanation doesn't really change the nature of the fact that they are still there. They have made this commitment to be there, and they just have to deal with whatever comes their way.
Right. There's kind of no turning around. I would keep it on the list for now. There's probably a couple of other ones on here I would see go before cutting Jett the Far Shore.
Yeah, but it's really cool, and I think that is the part of the game that I stayed the most invested in for sure.
Yeah. Like,
I will say, to touch on the mechanics of their storytelling a little bit, for some reason, I found the voiceover that they use kind of off-putting or kind of distracting in a way.
Yes, well, they also do it while you're trying to fly a ship, and you have to read the subtitles.
That's part of it. That is definitely part of it. But just overall, I wish they had either. I wish they'd either gone with actual intelligible dialogue, because they use like a fake language, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Like I wish they had either just done intelligible dialogue or just not done voiceover and just stuck to text. I felt like that kind of got in the way a little bit for me.
I mean, I'm a big fan of when media makes up its own language and does, you know, stuff with that. And there are aspects of that language that feel like this is what human language could develop into hundreds of years in the future.
That is kind of interesting that you almost hear sort of echoes of actual words that you understand in there. But like, I think like Vinny mentioned, like once it becomes an impediment to actually absorbing the story, because you're like trying to fly or avoid obstacles at the same time. Like, I guess that's what it is it's like in those moments when you're having a hard time keeping up with the subtitles, the fact that there is voice in your ear that you also can't understand just feels like a distraction. Like it feels like it's just further muddying you absorbing what's going on.
For sure. It's probably one of my bigger criticisms of the game. That you can't walk and chew gum at the same time with that game.
From a vibe standpoint, it's cool, but from just a mechanical, am I getting the entirety of the story standpoint?
Yeah.
Didn't quite
work. It's a bit
work.
of an impediment.
I think Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is an interesting story, but it's a little bubblegum sci-fi.
Yeah. I agree.
It's
a really good kids movie plot, and I don't mean that in a derisive way at all. Like, it is actually well told. The characters, like the lessons they impart, are imparted in a way that I think is very natural to the story that they are telling. And the stuff with like Rift and what's her name, Kit and fucking Rivet.
Yeah,
Rivet.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like the stuff with them, like they justify themselves in the story. Like they are a really interesting and worthwhile component of that whole thing. But yeah, it's like, it's not anything that I haven't seen done well before elsewhere. It's just done really well here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not controversial. I think you can definitely say Ratchet and Clank is sort of a DreamWorks style of, light, kind of geared toward a younger demographic sort of thing.
I do think it's one of the best Ratchet stories they've ever tried to tell.
Yeah. It's, it also hit at a time where you continue to have a lot of big blockbuster Hollywood cross-dimensional stuff. It's this character from this dimension, and I'm not even talking about Ratchet and Rivet. Even the Dr. Nefarious. It was like, this version of Dr. Nefarious, and it's like, okay, we've definitely had the alternate dimensional versions of a lot of different characters popping out. So I enjoyed it. It's a good. I'll say this: it's a good backbone for that game. Like it keeps things moving, and it serves its purpose well, and justifies some of the game mechanics in it. So that it serves its purpose. Okay, there.
And once again, shout out to the Morts.
And the Morts.
Yeah, my finger was itchy. I have cut it.
Yes.
Okay.
Itchy finger.
No, I accept that.
I see you hovering over Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm going to say this. That game's got a pretty good story. And I think it delivers it really. It's a little long, but it's actually a decent tale with a pretty. Okay. Is absolutely a galactic scale, but some good personal storytelling involved in that.
Yes.
Some of the almost the better parts of Mass Effect, right? Where you're like, there is this massive galactic threat going on, but the real story is happening on the personal level.
Right.
It's
the team. It's what's happening to them.
Yeah. It's kind of the team member stories or the stories of the people on the ground are told pretty well. I thought, and
very well, I think. Like, honestly, there was no story this year that surprised me more than this one.
Yeah, and not to get too into the weeds on it, but you basically have this. It's a mind control tale, and the kind of crux behind the mind control is that it will allow you to kind of it puts you in this like dream state that allows you to. What they call it, the wish, right? The fulfillment.
Yes, the promise.
The promise of like, and mostly people wanting loved ones back or this, and there's this kind of tale of getting that yearning for the thing you've lost or whatever you want, mixed in with all the Marvel BS, and they kind of pepper it in a lot of. Adam Warlock in his giant golden body is out there doing silly stuff, talking. In
Nova Corps out there being assholes.
I'm sorry. Did you just say Adam Warlock?
Adam Warlock, yes.
Adam Warlock. But
he's Space Jesus. He's golden Space Jesus.
But even they go and they make fun of him constantly. What is Alex Warsock or whatever they keep calling him? It's but they kind of know that the nonsense they have to deal with is all silly nonsense too, and it's fun.
It's a lot of fun, and again, like I went into this. Just being as over Marvel stuff as I think anyone can be at this point. And I was not ready to like this game at all, let alone invest myself in it. But their renditions of these main characters are largely very good. I don't love everything about the current Star-Lord, but I think that the story they tell around him is way more interesting than we made Star-Lord a video game dad thing that I was kind of getting and what they were kind of promoting at the outset. Like, yes, he is the sad video game dad, but also there's a lot more. They do a lot more with that than I think a lot of other recent dad stories have tried to do. And I think they find a good angle for it with him. But like the stuff with Drax, the stuff with Mantis, all the Rocket, sort of like a strife throughout that story. Like all that stuff is really interesting. And the bigger galactic plot doesn't feel throwaway the way sometimes the big galactic stuff in those Marvel movies can feel very throwaway. It's like, yes, we want to tell this personal story, but also there has to be a big monster fight in the last third. Like, they are, because it's a video game, and I will agree with Vinny, it is like a touch too long, but because it's a video game, they're able to stretch their legs with that stuff in a way that those movies just absolutely can't.
Yeah.
And I think that really benefits it. Like, it really makes them able to tell what feels like a very Marvel comic story, but in their own way.
They're able to have a whole Fing Fang Foom journey.
Do you know if all that, the A plot about the promise and all that stuff, is that something they lifted from a comic book storyline, or is that, do you know if that's original for the game?
What I know is that Adam Warlock is definitely a comics character, and I think Magus, who is sort of the antagonist character, which I won't get any more details about that, I believe that is also a Marvel Comics thing. I don't know if this particular application of that stuff was ever done in the comics or not.
Okay, because it sounds like kind of actually touching and interesting for a video game story, especially a comic book video game.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
it's
pretty good.
You know, it's very analogous, I think, to what Insomniac has done with the Spider-Man games, which is take a character that is well worn and, you know, has been applied many, many times over in many different mediums and made it their own and told something that was affecting. And I think it's very akin to that.
I think that is like my favorite way to do a comic book story at this point, is just like, hey, you know who this is. We don't need to tell the origin story yet again.
Yep.
Let's just tell an interesting story with these characters that are already like pretty lived in.
And they get a little bit into like the Star-Lord origin stuff, but they don't make it like the big focus. It's not like the big turning point. It's just kind of, it's the thing that informs the choices Star-Lord makes throughout this story.
Yeah. I think you know, when I was playing it alongside you, Alex, I've seen the movies and stuff like that. It's divergent. I mean, you're getting different versions, different enough where they're not just going for the movie stuff. Like, I mean, they explain,
and bless them for not. Yeah. Honestly,
I didn't hate the second Guardians.
No,
actually,
I think they're fun action movies. But that
is not an indictment of the Guardians films. I think the first one is better than the second one, but I don't hate either of them. It's just that I think that if they had tried to just render the films you've already seen, I would not have cared nearly as much.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, because they kind of have to go into it. It's funny. It's the Mass Effect stuff is. It's not really wearing it on its sleeve, but it's pretty clear.
It's basically holding up a sign that says, "Hey, did you like Mass Effect?"
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
It's lighter on the RPG stuff, lighter on the kind of open world stuff because it's pretty on rails. It's very on rails, but
it's more akin to like an Uncharted game or something. You know, it's a lot of big set pieces.
But you basically have inline loyalty missions in that game, where after you do the loyalty mission, the character gets a new ability because they have gone through this trial with you. So it's interesting in that part. And I think there's at least 2 or 3, maybe more bigger choices that kind of affect the outcome of the game, where you decide to take a dialogue choice in a certain way, and that affects your ending and your and what happens towards the end of the game, which is not kind of unexpected for this. There's a little more going on behind the scenes than a kind of straightforward Uncharted or action adventure game. It's neat.
It's convincing.
Yeah, I'd keep it on here for now. Oh boy, but we're gonna have to cut some.
We're gonna
stuff.
have to start making some cuts here. I think, and I will say again, I have not finished the game. I did read up on what happens in that game, and that was kind of informed my decision to not continue playing it.
Wait, which one? Guardians?
I was thinking about Deathloop.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if you said Deathloop.
I think that Deathloop has 2 really interesting, fun characters at the center of it, and I think some of that stuff involving the elites, as you uncover it, is really cool. But it seems like where they ended up with that story in any of the endings you can potentially get, that seemed pretty flat to me.
Yeah. I think that's pretty common. I also, again, I think I touched on this in the time loop category, but like, the expectation I had going into it when I had played the first few hours, that like, I'm going to kind of get to write my own end of this story. Like, I'm going to get to like Hitman my way through my final run. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be some personalization to the way I finish this game. And then it turned out like, no, it's not that at all. As well.
I think Deathloop probably has a better setup than it has a story. Like it's got a pretty cool. Like I think I'm with you, Brad. Like there's a cool setup there, right? Like, hey, you're gonna go. Oh gosh, I forgot the name of the elites again.
The visionaries.
Yes,
Visionaries.
You've got these visionaries. They're all these kind of comic booky, super powered people who got these almost like modern superhero story stuff where they're flawed, but they have these superpowers, and you're in this time loop, and you've got to go do this thing. Now go, and then it kind of stretches out and doesn't go any deeper than that, really, and until it kind of wraps up. And I think the wrap up, I don't know what happened there at the end for the wrap up. It really ends in what feels like, hey, we want more Deathloop to come out, and maybe you'll get more of that. Or that it's like, I don't know how to wrap this up. How do you wrap up this thing where you're got to stop a time loop? So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Deathloop. I think Deathloop has one of my favorite setups for a video game. It is rinse, die, repeat. What is the
live, die, repeat?
Live, die, repeat.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. Like Edge of Tomorrow was a video game, a movie that was just copying all the
It's the best video game movie, honestly.
Yeah, and this is basically that, but a video game or actual video game.
Yeah, man, I am super with you though about the beginning of that game. The first 5 to 10 hours of it is the most excited I was about a video game all year.
Yeah, it's got a
maybe since Red Dead and Breath of the Wild, like it's up there with oh my god, this is something I've never played before. This is so cool.
And with your little map board, and you're like I'm solving, I'm putting the mystery together and doing all this.
This weird roguelike first person shooter detective story thing, like Groundhog Day. It's such a weird mashup,
Mm-hmm.
I was so stoked on it for the first 10-15 hours.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is that the things, there's so much cool setup in there, and the actual mystery that is unfolding is not really that interesting, in my opinion.
I think some of it is, but I think that's what gets it on the big list, and I think the problems we talked about kind of doesn't get it onto the short list.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an honor to be nominated. Deathloop got talked about in this category because it does a lot of things really well.
Yeah.
I really should not have just done 24 runs on that annoying scientist guy in a row to max out all my stuff.
Boy.
Who put Mass Effect Legendary Edition on here?
I don't know. It just seems to have appeared on here. It's like somebody said Mass Effect out loud talking about another game, and all of a sudden there it was.
Look, we can't pull in stories from 2010, man.
Dude, it came out this year.
It did.
No, you got to let Alex do this. Alex is the one that will never let Mass Effect be on any list ever. Kill it, Alex. Take Mass Effect off. Do it. Do your duty.
Look, Vinny, I have apologized to you profusely, and I have acknowledged that I was in the wrong in that particular instance.
No, take it off. No, listen. Hey, Brad, you've got a history of not wanting Mass Effect on for DLC. So you guys go ahead. Get your digs in here for Mass Effect.
Boy, there's a lot of dirty laundry being aired all of a sudden.
I heard that Legendary Edition was very good. I did not play it because I had just played all those games on PC not that long ago, but I heard it was a really good collection, but also it's the same story. They did not change the content.
Look, no offense to these other games, but I would probably rather talk about Mass Effect than these other games.
Let me tell you two problems. As a big Mass Effect fan, let me tell you two problems with Mass Effect story that don't even include any of the stuff from the ending of 3 or whatever. Including Leviathan as DLC is an unforgivable act.
That is bad. I actually almost would say that making Javik DLC is even worse.
Mm-hmm. And having Javik as a DLC, or was that a pre-order? Or you could buy him.
I think it was if you bought the new copy or maybe the $80 copy, you got him in there. Otherwise, it was $10.
You have a Prothean teammate.
I have good news for you. The $60 package Mass Effect Legendary Edition includes all of that DLC on the disc.
Righting some wrongs. Anyway, Mass Effect, great story.
Yeah,
great character story stuff. I think the Reaper stuff is
it could have been better in a lot of ways. I've thought for years about this at this point.
Yeah. Well, so going back to Guardians, if you want your current Mass Effect indoctrination story, you can go get some Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh God, it's so weird to think that there is another Mass Effect game coming. What are they going to do with that? And we have to.
Let's sprinkle some allegedly on all of that, because right now I bet that's not even a game yet.
Let's see how Dragon Age goes first, I guess.
Once again, allegedly.
We have talked so much about Inscryption. I think you just put a star next to it. I don't know.
So?
I don't even know if I don't know if we have to go through all.
I think if you could do a brief refresher for people who maybe haven't listened to some of the spoiler cast part of stuff we've done in the past.
Yeah, I don't know if we don't have to step through every beat of it necessarily.
Yeah, okay.
Although I don't know I also wouldn't know where to start with it, honestly.
I think the thing you can say about it is that this is a game that very much presents itself as one thing, and then it becomes several other things as time goes on, and the way that it does that is incredibly interesting and novel.
I think the thing I would say is that it would be so easy for them to have just made a game that is so OMG zany and random. It's what does that mean? What the hell? It could have just made you say what the hell is going on 24 times and then ended without any kind of coherent through line.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually has, in fact, it has 3 stories going on. There's the story of the 4 scribes. There's the story of the evil video game company and the lady who died on the job, and the YouTuber who's investigating her death and all that stuff. And then, of course, there's the ARG nonsense that is.
I think my only knock against it would be some of the ARG stuff, which I like a mix of that. I'm okay with some of that, but I don't want to have to put in too much extracurricular work.
Well, I think that is easy to discard for me because it's so kind of inessential to the real story there. It's it's fun if you really want to dig into that stuff, but it doesn't take anything away from those 2 parallel stories in the actual game if you just totally skip all that stuff.
I wouldn't knock it off the list for it. I think it's just it's a thing that when you sent me that document of people trying to dig into that stuff, and it's
mind-blowing.
I was reading for 10 minutes, and then I was like, okay, I gotta go do something else. And I checked my scroll bar, and it was only 20%.
It's
down
insane.
The page.
It is insane.
It's a lot.
When the game quote unquote glitches out, and it scrolls a bunch of fake errors, it's all built into the game. It's not a real glitch, but when it glitches out and somebody had to figure out if I hit Control C in the middle of this, it'll just drop me to a command prompt.
It's
then
wild.
I can use that to dig some of the information for the ARG out of this thing, and then all the way up to somebody physically going to the actual GPS coordinates in the game and finding a thing that Daniel Mullins had put there.
Right.
It's insane. It's totally, but again, it's really those stories that are in the game itself. I think I was interested in those stories. They were helping to pull me along with just wanting to see what else was packed into this crazy thing. But it's really the last hour, and especially the last 15, 20 minutes that make it actually feel like it should be on here to me. It's that end sequence,
Mm-hmm.
It's PO3 is insane. We can't let him do this. We are literally going to delete ourselves from existence along with him to stop him rather than let this happen. You know what I mean? And it's that whole drawn out melancholy sequence of the objects, everything in the game being deleted right before your eyes, and they know they are about to die, and they're just sort of all dealing with it differently, and a couple of them are pretty sanguine about it. That stuff is incredibly melancholy and touching in spots.
Yeah, I'd say it's a decent story, extraordinarily told. It is maybe it's maybe not the most mind-blowing story, but the way they tell it, and the way I'm always gonna put a video game that does video game storytelling high on a list. When you can use the medium in a way that no other medium can be used, that is really special. Some of these other stories are really good, but you could make a movie of it. And
sure,
Inscryption works as a video game.
Dude, that stuff in the first act in the cabin where A, why the fuck are these cards talking to me? But B, not only are they talking to me, they're walking me through how to solve these kind of bespoke mechanical puzzles scattered around the cabin, right? To get the things you need to move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the cards are telling me what to do outside of the card game that they live in to somehow escape this loop, and then finding out that those cards were actually magical beings.
Yeah, and there's stuff in it that's meta of restarting the game, quote unquote rebooting the game, that are part of the storytelling that work because it's a video game. Unpacking has some of that as well. that only worked because of the interactive nature of it. But things like Jett could be a book that would be,
Right.
you could tell that story in a book. The Forgotten City as well. I mean, it's got multiple endings, but I think Inscryption does video game. It makes it special to that genre.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I actually, again, I don't think I would even actually fight for it to be on here if it wasn't that all that stuff reached that specific climax that it does.
Yeah,
that affecting
cool.
climax, like it really brings it home for me.
I'm going to talk about Outer Wilds: Echoes of the Eye, which I don't think is going to be on this short list. I think it is really, really. I think the story in it is actually very interesting. And so since it's not going to be on this list, I'm not going to go too deep into it, so people can kind of figure it out on their own. But I think I had a real roller coaster of a time with it, or at least a short roller coaster of a time with it. It was like, I really liked it. I was really frustrated by it, and then I really wound up loving it by the end. There's a middle segment there that I think if you don't get through, you're not going to see some of the cooler stuff that's in that piece of DLC, and that's unfortunate because it has some of those breakthrough moments that the original Outer Wilds continues to have. But they're just past some really frustrating parts, or at least parts I thought were really frustrating. Some roadblocks, maybe one or two or three or four or five too many roadblocks in your way to get to that cool stuff. And like Outer Wilds, your mileage will vary. You could stumble on it and just be right there and be like, I had no problem with it. Or you can get very frustrated with it. And I would say if you're getting very frustrated with it, just look up the solution, because it's worth seeing some of that other stuff and getting to the tail of it. And it's a different tale than you get in the original Outer Wilds. And just very briefly, in the original Outer Wilds, you're talking about kind of scientific explorers going to find this signal with a kind of gleeful pursuit of science, right? Like this kind of, everybody's happy and they're all like, we're doing amazing science stuff and that's okay. And we're all upbeat and
very, very core to their society.
Yeah. And this is not that. This is like kind of a sad, darker tale, and kind of heartbreaking in a way. But there's a mix of like Fright Night, darker stuff in it that sometimes doesn't work for me. Like the creatures in it take on this. It's got horror game parts to it that seem like stealthy and you're gonna get scared, and some of that didn't work for me. But it's a sadder tale for sure. But worth seeing through. I think if you're an Outer Wilds fan and pushing through some. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna make this list. But very good, very good.
Much like Mass Effect, this is just making me want to talk about the original Outer Wilds. But
Outer Wilds,
I'll
fantastic.
resist. But I mean, like where you say this is very sad, like Outer Wilds is both sad and uplifting at the same time, which is like a really hard balance to pull off.
This has some of that, but I think I came away from this one a little sadder than I did from the general Outer Wilds. Also, Outer Wilds has a lot more. This is a piece of DLC. We should not forget that. This is it's more self-contained. It doesn't branch out as much as the original Outer Wilds story, so you get fewer of those side stories of each planet had its own story in Outer Wilds. This is much more self-contained within there. You still get a pretty decent story, but kind of not as much character work as Outer Wilds has. So yeah, Echoes of the Eye, fantastic. Push through or look it up if you're stuck and you're not enjoying it. Just get through to the end and maybe you'll enjoy it more.
That just leaves one we haven't talked about.
Yeah, this is a big story. Psychonauts 2.
Yeah,
it's a large story. And pretty good, or like
very good,
like broad and kind of deep and a lot of character work.
Almost, I don't know. Almost makes me feel like it was going for so long that they were able to just cram everything in there.
You're not wrong.
And I going for that long. I guess we should. Plenty of games take quite a while to come out. But
it's also, like Psychonauts 2 is an expansion and a building on everything that they did with that first game. That first game was a PS2 and Xbox game, and also still one of my favorite stories from that era of gaming. And they are taking some of those ideas, which is, very much the Raz going in people's brains and solving their problems for them thing, and doing I think a really neat spin on it with the stuff involving Maligula the sort of, the Psychic Six, and just sort of the origins of like, kind of the whole psychic superhero unit that he is desperately wants to be a part of. And like its twists are earned. I think that its character work, especially with the Psychic Six personalities, is really strong. And they are doing a pretty solid juggling act. Like when Psychonauts 1 came out, mental health was not a thing people talked about in a real way. At least not at the degree that they do now. And I think the level of scrutiny you would apply to a video game that is, purporting to, sort of deal with issues of mental health in a, cartoonish, frivolous environment, the way that Psychonauts kind of does, it's much more likely to be ill received in this era as it would have been back then. But here, I think they do the work. Like they do the work of not treating, like taking aspects of people's personalities, depression, anxiety, all that stuff, and turning them into levels, turning them into content for this game without, like, they're not being frivolous about it. Like they're treating that stuff with a level of care that also isn't heavy-handed. Like it's not overbearing the amount of like dire seriousness you need to take these things. Like it's a high wire act, which is perfect for a game about a family of circus performers. But they work that high wire act really well. And like, I think just about everything they try and do in the story lands.
Yeah, they finally explore kind of the ethics of the Psychonauts and what it means to go into somebody's brain and the responsibility of being inside somebody's thoughts. And, there's a whole subplot about, rewiring somebody's brain for your benefit or not, or like, what are you in there to do? Right. Are you in there to get what you need or to help somebody? And, it's interesting they touch on that. And then they have kind of the A plot, which is, the older class and the younger class of Psychonauts. And maybe everything wasn't so great with the older class and there was disagreement there and bad things happened with, hey, listen, bad things happened it
was the 60s, man.
maybe some great stuff didn't, and they explore a lot. And in the course of that, you got a little like Who Watches the Watchmen style stuff of like, all these people who are supposed to be going out there fixing other people's brains are also broken themselves. And it's a yeah, I think you're right. I think I agree with you. It's a pretty heavy tale, and they try to keep the tone pretty light, but that just makes some of the heavier beats hit a little stronger, I think, when they do decide to take it down a notch.
Like, I'm glad you mentioned that part about the ethics of rewiring the brain, because I think the way they handled that scene with that agent and sort of like the continuing interactions with her past that, like they never let that go entirely, but they also like they leave room for forgiveness and lessons learned in there, but they also treat it with the seriousness that it deserves. Like Raz fucks up. He fucks up pretty bad. And, there's a version of that story where they're like, well, all's well that ends well. But like, no, she's pretty pissed at you for a while and kind of treats you at an arm's length because of it. But she also doesn't completely discount you because she knows what you were trying to do. And as long as you learn that like that is not the way to go about it, then maybe there's still a place here for you. And I think that delivery and that like framing of it, I think, is both really smart and really genuine.
I actually like the first time they have you do that. Like, I like that that's a game mechanic,
Yeah.
Like you were quite literally rewiring concepts physically.
Yeah.
As part of the game. Like, that was enough to make me even right then, like the first time they have you do it, go like, this is kind of messed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Should I actually be doing this?
Yeah, so I think they explore that. There's a lot of self-reflection. There's there's stuff with Raz's family that is it doesn't go too deep in there, but there's a lot of coming to grips with stuff in Psychonauts 2. There's a lot of having to accept different where people are in their lives in Psychonauts 2. But it's pretty was a Ford Cruller is a broken human, and you literally need to piece back together. And there's
Gotta
actually
go find his friends to make it happen.
actually, like, without just putting a foot right into the spoiler stuff, there's actually some really messed up business. Did you finish it, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay, some really messed up business with rewiring of brains and kind of facades, and that is actually, thinking back on it, kind of horrifying. What they do to some people in that game, which they. Not gonna say they completely gloss over. They give it some time, but they wrap it up pretty quickly at the end.
Yeah, they kind of have to, because they have to get that A plot kind of resolved at a certain point. But I agree, there are a couple of things that maybe they slide a little too quickly over.
Yeah,
but
I'm just thinking back to some of the stuff that happened that is revealed at the end of that game, and it's like, oh right, yeah, that was bad.
Yeah,
bad stuff. But yeah, I generally kind of like Ratchet and Clank, but I think taken to a slightly more mature is not the right word.
Emotional.
It's much more layered.
Developed,
I think there's a lot more texture to that story than what Ratchet has, and
serves the gameplay as well. Like gives you reason to be doing this stuff in a way that makes sense. So I don't know, for me, if it would wind up taking the cake in this category. I would probably.
It does for me. I will say the Psychonauts, I think, is actually my favorite among all of these.
Okay. I was about to say it sounds like it won't make the top 3, but I guess we leave it for now. Seems like we have our short list.
We do.
Let's
read them down, Brad. Why don't you go down what's on our short list?
Guardians of the Galaxy, Psychonauts 2, Jett the Far Shore, The Forgotten City, Inscryption, and Unpacking. You want to take a quick break and then come back and
tackle the winners?
Yeah. We'll take 5. Hold on, folks. We're gonna go, and everybody's gonna go look up all the spoilers for these here video games. But yeah, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll come right back with some more best story. See ya. And we are back, continuing down the narrative full path of best story, the voluminous, wordy.
That's narratastic.
There we go. With your narratastic host, Alex Narrativaro.
No, we're not doing it. No, I'm putting the kibosh on this right now.
Alex Narrativaro. Oh man,
we are. We did not do any. Here's a fun thing about being in separate places when you take a break. No behind the scenes trading going on. No deals being made.
No horse trading happening.
It's your critical time to go to the bathroom and get some water.
Just kind of general self-maintenance.
No time for backroom deals.
That's right. So just one more time. I know you just heard this because the break happened very quickly for you, but for me, it was about 5 minutes. So I'm going to read down best story. What's on the short list again? Guardians of the Galaxy, Psychonauts 2, Jett the Far Shore, The Forgotten City, Inscryption, and Unpacking. And we're probably getting pretty close to the name your top 3.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest we do just that.
Me too.
How about, I'll go first.
Yeah.
It's the bottom 3 for me, Forgotten City, Inscryption, and Unpacking.
Okay.
No, I'm going to say this. No bad choices on this list.
No.
Strong cases have been made for all.
Yeah. I'll probably go Forgotten City, Inscription. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I did it. Yeah.
I mean, my winner here is Psychonauts 2, but of the ones I have played and finished, Guardians of the Galaxy and Unpacking are my picks, but I think Inscryption deserves to be on this list.
Oh man.
Wow.
There's just enough overlap that this got hard.
Okay, so here's what didn't make it is Jett the Far Shore.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, you're okay. That's one. I think that's the only one that didn't get named.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we can let that one go.
Okay.
And I have to pick 3. I can't say 4. So I'm gonna make my choice between the 2. And I think, boy, I liked Guardians better overall, but I think Unpacking is so novel that I would like to see it represented here.
Interesting. Okay. I can see that. I mean, you guys I'm still probably not going to play Guardians because, man,
You should play Guardians. You like Mass Effect.
If you find a spare 20 hours, play that game.
that was my preface for saying I think you guys have made as strong a case to get me to want to play a game that I had no interest in at all that you could possibly have made, is what I'm trying to say.
I think there are parts you'd really like about it.
Everything you've said about the story stuff and the around the action stuff, like hearing that the combat is just kind of okay and it's all very linear and dragged on for a while is kind of off-putting. But everything about the story and everything that I've heard there sounds like it's like blows past my concerns about being burned out on Guardians and Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's a strong argument for that game.
It's very good. It's very, very good. Wait, did you cut it? Oh man,
Alex just said to do that.
Say cut.
No, it is still on Vinny's list.
Oh, I thought it was not.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was not.
Wow. Okay, that time Brad did it. That's not on me. I didn't delete something of Vinny's.
That's because it wasn't Mass Effect.
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen. I don't know what to cut.
Okay, and maybe an easier way to do this. What's your winner? Personally,
Forgotten City.
Interesting. Okay, mine is Inscryption.
And yours is Psychonauts. So is it that middle three?
I think it might be that middle three. As much as I hate to see Unpacking and Guardians go, I feel like that might be the one.
We were all unanimous about Unpacking deserving to be on here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
just feel more strongly about Psychonauts
I said
too.
Forgotten City, Inscryption, Guardians were my three. So
yeah.
While I think Unpacking.
Oh, I thought
so that is
Unpacking.
2 out of 3.
Oh, okay. I don't know why in my mind you had said Unpacking.
Because it's a great game with a really fun story or really fun storytelling.
Yes.
Listen, Guardians of the Galaxy is my popcorn, grand galactic storytelling choice here. It is. Does it do a thing a video game can only do? Not really. I mean, it has some choice stuff in there and some interactivity. Unpacking is a better case for that. Inscryption is a better case for that. Forgotten City is probably a better case for that. Psychonauts 2, maybe not a better case for that. But
those are the 3 on here that feel like what you said about using the medium itself uniquely.
Did I enjoy the ride on Guardians of the Galaxy? Mostly with that story buoying me the whole way? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did. I did. And I like the storytelling. I like the representations in it. I thought it was a pretty good one. So while I think we're probably in the middle of the pack there on Psychonauts 2, Forgotten City, Inscryption, even if Guardians came off now, I don't know if Unpacking is going to make it all the way through, unless somebody wants to cut Psychonauts 2, Inscryption, or the Forgotten City. But it seems like those are the number ones, right, for each of us?
I think so.
Yes.
And I think I would bias in favor of what are our personal favorites as opposed to trying to get some sort of like larger representation on here. Like if Psychonauts 2 was my favorite story, Forgotten City was Vinny's favorite story, and Inscryption was Brad's favorite story, then I think we have a 3-way split, and that is our category.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I
think that's fair.
I genuinely like all 3 of those.
I like all 5 of these a ton.
Right.
I think, granted, I didn't play that much Forgotten City, but everything you said about it sounds really cool. And what I know about Inscryption, I am genuinely impressed by.
Yeah, like I think in Forgotten City, for me, I mean, storytelling is going to be very personal, but for me, it mixes, it goes places that hits things that are very for me. In some of the reasons I have liked other video game stories that I can't get into without getting very spoilery in it.
Sure.
People who have played Forgotten City will know that thing gets a little silly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Guardians is going to pop off, and unfortunately, I think also Unpacking probably doesn't make the cut. Though, I think I feel okay in expressing what I really felt about Unpacking, which is its ability for you to tell a story through its mechanics, and it kind of just giving you venues to do that. Really,
yeah.
I don't know. Like the actual story it's telling is so slight that it's barely a story.
Yeah, but
you know, it's just it's a coming age. It's like a coming of age story, you know. But there's nothing remarkable about it. Like most people go through similar.
It's a framework.
Yeah, it's the delivery mechanism.
You know,
I think it's really impressive.
Yes, exactly. It's the way that it communicates. The way that communicates a lot of information with no words, with just like the barest contextual clues. So I guess it could come off
but-
for that reason.
But that is inherent to the game, but I would say also it tells the story of all of us at this point, which is probably if you were to just find someone's life through their stuff without talking to them, like that is the story Unpacking is telling. You are
right.
Yeah.
You are. It is you dropping into somebody's house and being like, "What is this person's life?" and coming away with what you think the story is or how they lived it, mostly through going through their crap that has survived with them. I think that's powerful, and it does very small things that seem small, like carrying forward the same mug you put your toothbrush in throughout the entire game and having it get chipped, or posters. It does a lot of great things. I
was paying close attention to that one stuffed animal that was always there.
Right. Or what is it? It's not cows. What winds up multiplying constantly? The
chickens.
Chickens.
Yeah.
The chicks.
Yeah, it absolutely deserves to be talked about on here. It is no slight to come off of this list, but I think we are looking at 3 of our favorite things from the year here.
I guess you're right. Yeah, like I'm sitting here like I hate to cut it because I feel like it deserves to be recognized, but then I guess we have recognized it.
Yeah.
By talking about it so much.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think, is this our first split down 3?
No, the very first category was also a split.
It was? Okay, it was a 3-way split? All right.
Yeah, best looking was a full split.
All right, I'm gonna put my name next to a game here.
I could almost go Forgotten City on this, but I think
if you didn't do Inscryption and did Forgotten City, I would almost have to do Inscryption. just because I think somebody needs to put their name next to that one.
Yes, that last 15-20 minutes was just so strong for me.
Yeah, good.
Love a game that ends strong.
Good on it.
Yeah.
These are the winners of this category are Psychonauts 2, that's Alex's pick. Forgotten City, that's Vinny, my pick. And Inscryption is Brad's pick for best story, both told and how it's told, and some good stuff in there. That was a good discussion.
Yeah.
Good celebration of video games.
Yes.
As a medium, let's say. Well, there's only one final thing to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And it involves a couple of steps, but it does, the end result being, what are the best games of this year? Now we've kind of talked about it back and forth. We've made our lists here. I think we're going to start by going over our kind of top 10s. Going to say out of the gate here, we're doing this before we publish our top 10s. It is possible some of these will shuffle around in order. If you've ever made a top 10 list of something before, you know it is very of the moment. I think even before we started recording, I was still shuffling stuff around because I felt different at that hour than I had the previous hour. So stuff gets shuffled around. So it's not
sometimes you just have to let go of it.
Yeah.
However it stands at that moment, that's how it's going to be.
Right.
I think the thing that's not going to change is that all of these games will be on our top lists individually, no matter what order they appear in. That's maybe more up in the air.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, I think we're looking to kind of get around 5 games-ish for this Nextlander site list. That being, I think 5 being about where the meat is really still on there. And, we kind of talked about what the bottom 5 usually wind up being kind of like a list. Like they get shuffled around a lot. But I think 5, you'll get some real passion for those games. So without further ado, shall we read the list?
Sure.
Mine's on the top here, so I'm just putting a chapter marker in here for the top 10s. I'll read mine. So I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So
yours is a top 11.
Mine currently has 11 on it because I couldn't figure out how to shuffle this around in a way that made me feel okay. So starting from number 11, I have Returnal. Which by the time you are listening to this might be popped off. I don't know. I've got Kenna Bridge of Spirits on my list. I've got Metroid Dread coming in next. Life is Strange, True Colors, The Forgotten City. You may have heard of it. Hitman 3 on my list, and then Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, Deathloop, Guardians of the Galaxy, Inscryption, and Psychonauts 2 currently at the top of my list.
Fascinating.
Fine list.
It's a fine list. Games
Brad,
have probably
do you have an even
of.
finer list?
Yeah.
Here's a finer list. Here's my top 10 list as it currently stands. I think these are fixed-ish. There's like maybe one that might get replaced with something else.
It's a little hard to read, right? Like it feels weird, like cementing it in.
Yeah.
Until it's published on our Patreon page, all is pending.
Yes. All right. From 10 to 1, Metroid Dread. Did you have Metroid Dread?
Yes.
He did.
Yeah.
Metroid Dread. Back for Blood, probably. Returnal, Deathloop, Unpacking, Hitman 3, Boomerang X, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Valheim,
Damn.
and Inscryption.
All right.
I like it. Oh.
Man, I should have brought up Valheim and best looking. Okay, Alex, go ahead.
All right. Well, my top 10, I think I'm pretty firm about where this is going to end up, but you never know. Number 10 is Old World, the 4X strategy game. Number 9 is Forza Horizon 5. Number 8 is Mundon. Number 7 is Lost Judgment. Number 6 is Unpacking. Number 5 is Hitman 3. Number 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 3 is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Number 2 is Psychonauts 2. And number 1 is Fights in Tight Spaces.
I like
a game
it.
I would not shut up about in 2021.
That's a real Into the Breach, just like repeatable strategy game style number 1.
So those are I haven't done the math on these, so I don't know how many overlapping. Let's say those are 31 games we have read off. I don't know, it probably shuffles down to something more like 15 to 20 with overlap. So now we're going to try and compile a list here by just kind of going through a lot of the games we've talked about and just removing them until we want ceremoniously saying goodbye to games that we've got a kind of bigger list here of games we've talked about throughout these proceedings. We're going to now remove them and be left with the games that we talked about for these lists. Brad, what is the first game that you have your mouse over?
Griftlands is the top of this list because it was an early access game.
That's right. Griftlands not on anybody's list. Probably won't make
Goodbye, Griftlands.
That does not mean it is
nope, it's the worst game because it's the first one we eliminated.
But I've forgotten. All right, what's next? We'll just chew through these.
GTFO also technically came out last month.
Okay.
I don't know that any of us has played it since it went 1.0. I would
not since 1.0. No,
I really like that game. I would like to check that out again.
Okay.
It's off.
Old World is on Alex's list, I believe.
Old World stays.
Okay.
Hitman 3, I think, is in all 3 of our lists.
Hitman 3 stays.
I'm guessing the Medium is not on anybody's list.
No, Medium not on a list.
Medium can go.
That was also one of those. Was that really this year?
Yeah, that's off.
Valheim
stays.
Brad, locking it in.
Like currently number 2 on my list. Destruction All Stars is, I'm confident, will go.
Yes.
It can go.
Mario 3D World also very high on my list.
So it stays.
Persona 5 Scramble? The
Strikers.
Sorry.
Strikers.
Nope.
It can go.
All right. Fights in Tight Spaces is there.
Yes.
Loop Hero, I believe, is not. Like at one point, Loop Hero could have made it in my top 10.
Yeah. I
played a bunch of that game. And I played some more of it on the Switch, which maybe some of the text is a little too small for that Switch screen. But I don't know. I hit a wall with that one at some point.
Loop ran out.
You didn't mention Fights in Tight Spaces, but it was on top of my list.
Did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I missed that.
That was definitely a keeper.
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Moon. I look forward.
Bless their hearts.
I want to see more Rupert in the future.
Yes. Give Rupert Booth more work in 2022. That's my political platform.
Do you have Mundon?
Yes,
I did.
Alex has it.
Okay. It Takes Two.
That might be my kid. What on my kids' top 10 list? That might be on there. Surprisingly, given the thematic whiplash of that game. Actually, not thematic whiplash. It's kind of thematic car wreck. I would probably say of that game.
I still, part of me would still like to finish that game.
Yeah,
There's something there.
I'm good.
I have seen that ending a couple of times now because my kids enjoy the gameplay parts of it. I don't appreciate some of their story stuff.
It's time to make It Takes Two out of sight.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you got here, Brad? Your mouse is over something.
Everybody's symbolic spiritual number one. Balan Wonderworld.
I'm not seeing it on any list.
No. No on Genesis Noir either.
Genesis Noir, very cool game. I think it was on. It might have been on.
It was on Game Pass at one point.
Yeah. Narita Boy.
Neat game. Glad I backed it. Not going to make the list.
Okay. Outriders. Did that win our?
Yes, it did.
That unanimously won that.
I almost forgot. But again, I was did this database mess up again?
I still cannot believe that came out this year.
It's a game I will probably play more of too.
I mean, last year, excuse me.
But not on any lists. I played a lot of that game. Another nominee for the come out this year, Oddworld Soulstorm. Nope.
Yeah. Honestly, Pac-Man 99 could have been in that category. I wish I had liked that more. I tried. I played a good amount of that. I really wanted that to be my new Tetris 99, but it turns out there's only one.
Yeah, there can be only one.
Had some interesting ideas. It's kind of neat. It just doesn't get all the way there for me. The Nier re-release.
I'm glad it exists. I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they did a good job on it. It was cool, but it does not make my list, so I don't think anyone's going to put a bat for it.
Returnal.
It's
pretty strongly represented.
It's my number 11.
Even if it falls off Vinny's list, it's still on Brad, so it stays.
Yeah.
Okay. RE Village.
You know,
none of us played it.
Yeah, I didn't play it.
I played the first. I played the first couple hours. But I played the first couple hours before I had ever touched RE7, which we then went and streamed a few months ago, which really renewed my interest in going back and starting Village over now that I actually know what's going on. Because like the stuff that happens at the beginning of that game sure is just like out of left field if you don't know who Mia is, for example.
Right. Yes.
Like I was just a lot of, wow, this is popping off. Okay, sure. But I would like to check that out.
Yeah, I have a feeling that could be in some maybe like 2022 lists.
I have seen a fair amount of mixed opinions on it compared to 7, but all right. I guess Mass Effect Legendary Edition doesn't actually count, even though it should.
Well, it counts.
I'm not saying it could count in the category of like your top 10 list, but none of us put it there.
Yeah.
So,
Biomutant. Goodbye, Biomutant. Maybe come
you
back.
were not all the way there.
Yeah, you were not all the way there. Chivalry 2. I had a lot of fun playing Chivalry 2.
Yeah, that one stream we played was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't have enough fun.
I also had my fun with it, and I feel like I'm good.
Yeah.
I did not go back to it after that.
Chicory, A Colorful Tale. Great game. A lot of fun. I think the mechanic on it, probably...
I could have liked it more.
Yeah, could have liked it more. Probably better suited to a mouse and the paintbrush stuff. Ratchet is on lists.
It's on at least 2.
Yes. Mario Golf, Super
Definitely
Rush, not on any list.
Definitely not.
Boomerang X on Brad's list.
That's right.
It stays.
Death's Door, not on any list, but I like that game a lot.
That game was like the most mid game of like everything this year. Like a thing that I basically enjoyed the whole way through, but just did not like hit for me in that way.
Yeah, like I thought it was fine. Like I had nothing against it, but it also did not it didn't grab me the way I saw a lot of right after it
Some
came
people
out.
seem to really love it.
There were people out there going like, well, that's my game of the year. And I'm just like, that's okay, sure.
It's cool.
It's cool. I like it a lot. I played a decent amount of it.
I don't mind it. Yeah.
What are we up to here? Oh, Forgotten City. Yeah, that stays. The Ascent, a game I really like. I will probably wind up playing more of that I'm going to be honest. When the time arises that I have free time to have something else to play, but I would play more of that.
If that game had been less busted at launch and I'd stuck with it, it might have made my list, but I just didn't.
Yeah, I really enjoyed what I played of it, but yes, it was pretty janky.
Great first impression that kind of wears off as it gets jankier.
Fun co-op though. Axiom Verge 2, a game I should probably finish because I put a bunch of time into it.
That's another one that I feel like could have been in that I forgot this came out this year category. And like that game came out in August. That doesn't even have the early year thing to lean on.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It seems fine.
Aliens Fireteam Elite. not on any lists.
Yeah, there's a world where I could have ended up playing way too much of that game.
Yeah.
It's probably good that we don't live in that world.
Psychonauts 2 on the list. Keep it. We've got Lake. No,
Lake came very close to making my list, but it did not ultimately.
All right, Lake is off. The Artful Escape.
And the Artful Escape is cool. I like that game.
It has a certain je ne sais quoi.
That's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Yes, there's all kinds of French
Mm-hmm.
phrases you could apply to that.
It's Viven. But not on lists.
No.
WarioWare.
Boy.
Get it together.
Yeah, fucking come on, get it together, Wario.
Get it together. I put Deathloop on my list. Brad, it's on your list. And is it on your list, Alex?
It's not on mine, but it hangs.
Even with the way it develops over time, I still think there's enough going on there that it's very memorable.
Yeah,
totally.
Eastward, a game that I am just trying. This is going to be maybe in my like 2032 list. It is a game that is just going to take a lot more time for me to put into it, but I've enjoyed some of it so far. It's a slow burn.
It's awfully pretty.
Yeah, it's a really good looking game. But yeah, not on the list this year. Bridge of Spirits is though.
Made your list.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I really like that one.
Sable is my great regret. I know in my heart of hearts that if I had put the time into it, it probably would have made my top 10, but it was the one that I ended up sacrificing to finish other things. And I feel badly about that. And I'm sorry. I'm apologizing here, but we didn't put it on a list, so it can't make it.
Hey, I don't know if you've looked at the January release calendar, but
never been a better time to play those games you didn't play.
Revisit.
Lost Judgment is on a list. That's on Alex's list. So we keep it.
Did Echoes of the Eye make lists?
No, I didn't put it on my list. It was bouncing around for a while there.
Okay.
I didn't have it on mine. I really, really, really like it, but Outer Wilds is maybe one of it's in my like short list of favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
And
tough act to follow.
It's a tough act to follow. Not that it makes it any less for the thing, but there's other games on here that I think I want to give that space to. Jett's also a game that, man, I wish I liked it more.
I thought very hard about putting it on my list anyway, just because I like what it represents. But, in the end, there were other games I felt more strongly about.
Yeah. Jett, off the list.
Metroid Dread is staying, though.
Metroid Dread made my list.
Yeah, I kind of grudgingly made mine too.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
is that the only Nintendo game on here?
No, Bowser's Fury is like
Bowser's Fury. That's right.
Way up there for me.
Back 4 Blood makes the list that is on.
Yeah, that's another one that I sure.
We'll see how long it lasts, but it's on the list for now.
Like if there were a couple others that if I had finished them would probably knock it off, but
yeah,
there's something about that game that I kind of enjoyed.
Inscryption is on the list.
Mm-hmm.
That is sticking around. Dark Pictures, House of Ashes is not on the list.
No,
but I'm glad it exists. I mean, even being on this big list, that's something.
Yeah.
Guardians is on the list. That's sticking around. Unpacking is on the list. Yes,
is
okay for sure on the list. Forza is on the list. It sticks around.
It's on mine. Yeah.
Solar Ash not on the list.
Oh, anybody finish that?
I did not. I think I might be close to, but I
put some hours into it. I keep falling off of it.
Not on the list.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No, not by any means. I'm just not getting the momentum with it.
Yeah.
Heavenly Bodies, super fun. I started playing it also with my kids. I bought it again on the PlayStation to play with them. I like that game a lot. That's fun.
Slight but very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's cool, but not on a list this year.
Yeah. Halo,
not
on a list.
Yeah, that's a weird one for me. Playing it the way I did, like getting quite a ways into it, and then like losing my save with that review build.
Yeah,
like just killed my momentum to get back into it.
Yeah,
like having to play through so much again. Like I've kind of slowly working my way through those first few hours again. Like, I really would like to see the whole thing.
That's a real shame they don't let you keep your save on that stuff.
I started to say I've literally never seen a review process like that, but that's ridiculous because that was everything at GameSpot back in the day. Like back when we got debug builds of things that didn't even run on real consoles.
Right.
That was how things worked back then. But
it's been so long since that time.
Long since you reviewed a game, or even were in some kind of review-ish situation where you couldn't just keep your progress from then on.
Yeah.
But I really would like to see how that plays out, even though it sounds like it plays out pretty weirdly. But you guys don't have it, and also I guess it's telling that I was not super excited to play through the opening parts again.
Yeah.
That's another one where I'm just having a hard time maintaining momentum in that campaign. Like, it's not bad. It's just I feel like the repetition of it is hindering me. And I do think the multiplayer is really, really solid. But
yeah, for sure. But yeah, you're right. Even where I was at in the campaign when that build went offline, like even then I was starting to see like it was definitely like, oh, I just played through the same combat room 4 times in a row. And like this is definitely that kind of level design again.
There's something about the secondary weapon switching, which is the putting me off, where I don't want to switch. I never want to take the grappling hook off. Like I don't want to switch over to like the motion sensor. I don't want to switch over to the dodge. Like
I almost wish there was a way to like use one of the other items once and then have it default right back to the grappling hook.
Yes.
Because I always want the grappling hook at the ready, except for the very rare occasion I want to use something else.
Like it's got this thing in it that almost reminds me of Psychonauts 2's ability switching, where it's like, man, I always like the grappling hook should just be its own button and let me switch between the other things there, because I always want that thing ready. I have all of them now and they're all powered up, and I still just want the grappling hook. Yeah. And then so that's not making it. And then the gunk, which one of the later releases of the year.
It's fine,
fun little game, but did not make any lists this year.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not quite what I expected it to be. It was a little more slight.
I finished it. It's short. It's pleasant enough for what it is.
Right.
But it did not resonate as a top 10.
I've thought about finishing it off because it is short enough.
It's like 6 hours, I think.
Right. Like it really moves. At the same time, it's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It's not.
It's enjoyable.
So that leaves us with what do we have here? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12,
I think
18, 20 games?
20 games.
20 games. Oh, good number.
20 games between us.
Well, let's Alex, why don't you read down what we got here?
So based on this list, we have Old World, Hitman 3, Valheim, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Fights in Tight Spaces, Mundawn, Returnal, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Boomerang X, The Forgotten City, Psychonauts 2, Deathloop, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Lost Judgment, Metroid Dread, Back 4 Blood, Inscryption, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Unpacking, and Forza Horizon 5.
A good list.
That's a really strong list of games.
Yeah. All right.
Games came out last year.
Yeah. That's
popular opinion.
That's our 20 games as pulled together by smashing our top lists together. Now we're gonna try and whittle these down to 5 releases here.
I don't want to make this the full process, but I do think the way to open this and the way to at least get a few off of here is for us each individually to make one sacrifice off the list.
Okay.
That's easy.
I don't want to do this over and over and over again, but I just feel like at least at the beginning.
Yep.
Okay. I will absolutely remove Back 4 Blood right now.
Okay.
Like I like that game. I enjoyed playing it quite a bit, but it's got issues. It's not amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
That's kind of how I feel about Old World. It is a great, I think they made a really interesting foundation for what I think could be a really cool series of 4X games. There are aspects of it that I think are not fully fleshed out, but like what is there is really strong as an opener. But it's the number 10 on my game list. Neither of you guys were super into it. I don't think it's in our top 5 category one.
I think Bridge of Spirits is I like that game. It's a very personal, for me. Like, I understand if it's not going to have that mass appeal. It's just a game I really like. But I don't think it's going to be on I wouldn't expect it to be on a broader list, or get a lot of favor on it. So that could
if there had been more there gameplay wise, I might be into that. Like I love the presentation and the charm and the heart of it.
All right. Do we want to try that again? Because it's starting to get. I feel like we're getting down.
I'm
willing
to go. I think I can go one more round.
All right, if you think so, why don't you start then?
I can let go of Forza Horizon 5. It's a very solid one of those games. It's. I'd say it's just about as good as the last one was, but it isn't necessarily much better. And I mostly put it on my list, but just to admit to how many hours I sunk into that thing. It's a lot. I had a lot of fun with it, but it has basically all the same problems those games have, and doesn't necessarily make anything super much better. It's just a great setting and a great driving game. So,
all right, Forza's off. If we're doing one more here, I'll probably snipe off Metroid for me. I think it's a cool game. I think it's like fun.
This will have to be a double snipe because it was also on Brad's list.
Yeah. Yeah. Where was it on yours?
Number 10. Again, a grudging number 10. Like I felt like both it had to be in my top 10 and it had to be no higher than 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had such a love-hate relationship with that game almost the whole way through it. I mean, I loved it for the first 2-3 hours. But,
was it the map stuff?
It's mostly the map stuff.
Okay.
Like I really don't think the level design in that is up to the standard of the Metroid franchise. Like A, the map is a little too busy and hard to parse, but B, it is the bizarre level of cutting off your routes. Like they lock you into so many smaller portions of the map than I feel like a Metroid ever has.
Yes.
Like constantly running into doors that had been open and were now locked for just arbitrary reasons. Like just drove me up the wall.
But I think it's a solid game, very solid game. And
like I still enjoyed, I finished it. I enjoyed all the time I spent with it. Actually, it's weird. Like the control complaints are not invalid. Like the kind of controller
pretzel
spaghetti that your fingers pretzel, whatever. Like the kind of button combos they force you to bust out on a moment's notice are kind of extreme. But at the same time, like the basic controls, the feel of controlling Samus is like fantastic.
She's very fast.
I feel like like the movement feels great, but I also I hate playing 2D games with an analog stick, but I totally didn't mind it in this because it felt so good. And I know the 3DS Metroid 2 remake had this that was also from Mercury Steam. I didn't play that one, but the 360-degree aiming, I feel like adds a ton to 2D Metroid combat. Like the analog stick aiming also was really fun to use. Just less even than I expect from a Metroid game.
That's a game I almost floated for the I wish I liked it better, but I also kind of went into it very much of the mind that none of these Metroid games have ever hit for me the exact right way. So is this really going to be the one that changes it? And it wasn't. But also at the same time, the things that made me not like it weren't necessarily the Metroidness of it. It was the fucking robots. And it was the level design.
I should have mentioned that also. The Emmy stuff is well intentioned and novel, but man, fuck some of that stuff.
I'll say this as someone who really doesn't like the Emmy stealth stuff. I like the part where you get the super weapon fighting the Emmy.
Yes, that part's fun.
Yeah,
that's an interesting little kind of action puzzle thing to figure out. But that stealth stuff was just garbage.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Metroid Dread is off the list, but hey, listen, we're in the parts where these are good games. So
yes, none of these games are bad.
Remember that part. All right, Brad, you want to pick one to close out the early round?
Like one of mine?
You can pick anything.
Oh,
you might get pushback on it.
Yeah, I made my picks based on my own, but I think anything's fair game.
Jeez, man. How about? It feels weird cutting something that somebody else put on here.
You might get agreement for it. I mean, we got to get this list down. So,
well, I mean, there are definitely games on here that aren't mine that I feel like aren't going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like Mundon, I doubt is going to be in the top 5, right?
No, I don't think so. And that's probably the next one I would have floated. I think that game is really neat. It's really it was a big surprise for me. I love what they did with the art and the audio in that game, and it's a really solid survival horror entry. That does some interesting stuff with its setting. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I like that game a lot, but I also think that, I mean, it's number 8 on my list. It's not, there are other games I feel much more strongly about on here.
Right. Like Returnal probably also isn't going to make it.
I think not.
Yeah. I think Returnal wouldn't be in my top 5. Well, obviously it's not in my top 5.
Yeah.
It's tough for me because like that is exactly my kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like shipping without some kind of built-in suspend feature was such a misstep for that thing. Like that's why I stopped playing it. Like I would have finished it if it hadn't been for that.
It is.
They just added that like less than a month ago.
Oh
like,
yeah,
early December I think is when that.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago for sure.
So like I actually re-downloaded it after that patch finally came out because I want to get back into it, and then I fired it up and ran around some, and then I got hit by the decision paralysis of like I don't remember hardly any of this. Should I just start over? But I had so much progress on it already. Like,
yeah.
Now I'm in that limbo of not being sure how I want to approach it, but it's such a cool concept.
It gets hard. It gets very punishing.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, that's part of why I'm just into that kind of thing. Like that, it feels really good. It's got that tight dash on it, and all the dodging the 3D bullet hell, which is so ridiculous. You're not wrong though. It is definitely a lot.
The missile part. Yeah, I wouldn't put it. It's dawning on me that when we decided to do a 5 is probably going to be harder than a 10. I don't think I realized that at the time, because you will now have to have a list that doesn't include games that can just kind of hang out at the bottom.
No, we could just make it a 10.
We could just make it
why don't we try first
okay.
to see where we get, and then we can talk from there. But I think I agree. I'm in agreement that Returnal can go.
Yeah, Returnal can go. Well, let's take Returnal off and see what we're left with here. How many we've got?
Is it possible to add games back?
What did you want to add back?
Nothing. I'm just asking before we cut.
I think you can always add games back. I mean, technically yes, but also
I'd like the cut to be final if we can do it.
I would say philosophically, I'm not opposed to adding anything back, but I think you're going to have a tough road with some of these games.
Well, I only ask because we don't know now if we're doing a top 10 or a top 5.
Well, we have more than 10 on here.
We still do, yeah. And I don't think Returnal even makes a top 10.
Like there are games that I would definitely cut if we're doing 5 that might hang in a 10, is what I'm saying. So without
is Returnal one of those games though?
For me, it would be, but maybe not.
Let's get to 10 and let's see where we're at 10. Because I think Returnal can go in this broader 10.
All right.
Because I think we're going to have a lot of trouble on this next round of cutting.
Just to get it to a nice even 12, I'm just going to float one more here that can go from my own list. Lost Judgment can go.
Okay.
It's, again, I don't think it's the strongest one of those games that studio has made in recent years. I think it has its merits, but it is very much a game that I think your enjoyment is going to rely on you really loving that studio's games.
All right. Well, what do we want? Now we are down to 12.
12. Okay, now here's how I would invert this now.
Okay. What if we just kept 12?
What are the ones that each of us I like? My instinct is that any game that is one of our number ones,
yes,
should be on the final list.
Yes, right. For sure.
I'm going to Brad, while you have this up in the background here, I'm also just going to start adding on the text document some stuff. So when you switch back to that, we will have a list here.
Okay.
So okay, here's what I'm going to say for mine. I think you cannot cut Psychonauts 2.
Okay.
So Psychonauts 2 would be on that short list. All right, what else?
Even without this rule, I would not. Also, Psychonauts is not the title, but yes. Nonetheless, I agree with you. Even if we weren't holding to this rule, I would say Psychonauts should not come off this list.
Hold on.
Here, I've got it.
Hold on. Wait, you should be on the other list.
No, oh god, you guys are just making it
worse. All right, what else? All right, Brad, what are you keeping on here that is absolutely not getting cut?
Well, Inscryption is my number 1.
Okay,
so
I think that's going on the list.
Okay. If that's what we're outlining, then
yeah. All right,
then that,
and then Alex, Fights in Tight Spaces.
Yeah, I know. It's not on either of your lists, but I love that game so much. Listen, I want it on there.
There are 7 other games that we now need to figure out, or 2
could fill out,
or 2. This is impossible.
No, what are you talking about? We did this for years.
I kind of feel like maybe we commit to a 10.
Maybe we do a 10.
Like I'm in a weird spot where if you look at my lists, numbers 2 through 4
Yeah.
are games we basically have not talked about at all in these categories because they're almost pure mechanics games
Mm-hmm.
that just don't lend themselves as well to being talked about in things like story and stuff like that. But I really like them, and I would like to see them somewhere, or at least talk about them.
What if we did an unordered 10? Because putting them in order
feels like the coward's way out.
It is the coward's way out. I agree with that. But are we cowards? Maybe.
No, I would say maybe an unordered 10, and we pick our favorite.
Yeah.
Well, let's get it to 10 because we got to cut 2. So let's say if we're gonna do 10,
1 or 2 that are on this list right now that are just not going to make it.
Huh. I started to see, this almost sounds crazy, but does Deathloop make a top 10?
I would put Deathloop in a top 10. I would put
I wouldn't.
I would put Deathloop over Valheim for a top 10.
It is in my top 10, but like again, the first 10 hours I was like sure that was like my game of the year with a bullet. And then the deeper I got into it, the more it slid down the list.
Oh, this is the part where people are going to start slashing good games. Deathloop, I think, is a top 10 game for me, for sure. Even all the way through. It is not without its problems, but I would keep it in a top 10.
I think the fact that it's on both your lists gives it a little weight.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely gives it some weight, for sure.
For me, I as much as I liked Valheim, I would probably not put it on a site top 10 list just because it's a little bit of a moment, but it's a good moment.
It was a good moment.
Oh, I had so much fun with that.
I had a lot of fun too.
It's so ridiculous. And
we have done of a moment games before, for sure, on lists, but I don't know. It didn't do it as much for me, I think, as it did for you.
I mean, I loved all those group streams that we did. Like that stuff is always really fun for me. Like anything that involves a lot of player expression, with building houses and stuff like that. Honestly, the thing that sticks out in my mind, though, was the 4 hours I spent by myself on a Saturday morning. God, I wish I had this on video. Where there was a troll, the gigantic blue trolls, on a tiny ass little island. And I was like, I'll just pop onto this island and like fight this troll. No, I actually just wanted to loot some treasure chests. Anyway, troll killed me on this tiny island. And like, that game has full on like Dark Souls drop all your stuff mechanics, right? 4 hours of like every dirty trick I could come up with of like trying to sail a raft over and plink at him with a bow for 30 minutes, whittle him down and kill him. And like, he was just like, nope, he just waded out into the water and just like smacked me in one hit. Like, it was just the dumbest emergent moment of like, I was trying every underhanded thing I could to get my stuff back. And this troll just kept shutting me down over and over. Like, I don't know. That kind of emergent drama is just like priceless for me in games, but maybe it does not have the broad appeal here that I thought it might.
I mean, well, I'm not saying it's not this is the hard parts. It's not a bad game.
Yeah. I don't know if it's locked at number 2 on my list. It's up there. It might be a 3 or a 4. Honestly, Valheim, Bowser's Fury, and Boomerang X are all kind of interchangeable in that 2 to 4 area for me.
If you were in a position where you had to let go of one of those, not 2, just 1 for now.
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. Now that you mention it, it might be Valheim because I did hit the early access wall on it at a point where it was just like, okay, clearly the content beyond this point is limited. There's not going to be much else to do in here for now. And then as they've added stuff to it, I have not gone back to it. Also, frankly, everybody we know falling off of it kind of dampened my enthusiasm because like at some point, if nobody else is playing it anymore, like it's just not as interesting.
Right. On the solo side.
And they're already doing like seasonal events in it, which is not really the direction I was hoping they would go. So I don't know. I hope there is a world where there's a good reason to get back to Valheim at some point. All right, fine. I'll let that go.
Well, there's only one more to get to a 10.
Ratchet is on multiple lists. Hitman is on multiple lists. Forgotten City is on multiple lists. Deathloop is on multiple lists. Guardians of the Galaxy is on multiples. Unpacking is on multiples.
I wouldn't necessarily just go by that.
No. I'm not. Yeah. I'm just saying it for the sake of framing.
Because there are games that people like Brad. I'm
like
sure
Fights is only on my list.
Yeah,
I understand.
And I know, Brad, you love Boomerang X much more than I probably like half the games on my list. So it's like, it's just because
none of these, that doesn't disqualify anything. I'm just saying it so that like it's kind of there and said out loud.
Nobody else had Bowser's Fury?
I did not.
Did you guys play it?
Yeah,
I did. I liked it.
I bounced off of
honestly, I liked Boomerang X more. If I were picking between those two, like I think I had more. I felt more about Boomerang X. I think Bowser's Fury is a really neat experiment, and Super Mario 3D World is one of the most underrated of Mario games.
Totally,
in my mind. I'm glad they did it.
I think maybe it didn't hit as much because I had been playing a bunch of 3D Worlds for the last 2 years with the kids.
Yeah, honestly, like this is really only here for Bowser's Fury for me.
Yeah,
like, I played 3D World back in 2014 or whenever that
13,
came out.
I think.
Like I barely touched the 3D World part of this, but Bowser's Fury was like the freshest thing I have seen out of Mario in like I don't know how long.
It's Galaxy. Yeah, that's
like I don't know. Part of me really hopes that like that is kind of inching in the direction of like the future of Mario. You know, like having an entire it's a fairly bite-sized Mario game, but having an entire Mario game that all takes place on one map.
I think the thing that threw me off about it is that I did not enjoy the surprise Bowser. I think
that is definitely the weakest part of it.
I think this is the year that Nintendo decided to experiment with the idea of omnipresent villain and bosses, with Emmy and with this, and it just, I don't like that.
They really should have turned down the frequency dial on the Bowser showing up and interrupting what you're doing. You're not wrong. But it's just my taste as always to like, I always want to reward like interesting experiments, even if they're flawed over more traditional stuff. Looking around at anything else here that is likely to go. Is there anything else on here you guys don't feel super strongly about?
I mean, like I love Hitman. But it is. I mean, Hitman 3 for me is probably the culmination of 2 other very good Hitman games. Like it's.
I think Hitman has to make the list.
It's very good. Like
it was such a big part of our year too.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
But like is it doing anything? Is it doing anything super new? No. Is it more of a good thing? Yes. Like it is.
Well, I think those individual maps that we call that in that category arguably are somewhat new. I mean, it is all still the Hitman framework for sure. Like,
and it's a hell of a package. If you get everything in there. I mean, they had some trouble doing that with the way they rolled it out, but I don't know. Out of the things on here that are things I would put on here, that's the closest probably I have on here for a thing that would.
One thing I will say about Hitman 3 that we haven't talked about a ton is like how kind of reduced in scope it felt. Like just kind of production quality, I guess. Like trying to think how many of the maps are thinking through the maps in my head here. Like, one out of it's only 6 maps and 1 out of those 6 is like tiny and like barely a Hitman map,
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of only like 5 genuine Hitman maps.
If
you look at there are other factors there though. Like if you look at like, for example, the production quality between the cutscenes in this and the first one is like shocking. I don't know if you've gone back and looked at that stuff.
I have actually, yeah.
Cutscenes in the first one, like I got weirdly invested in the Hitman story at some point. But like the cutscenes in the first one are like incredibly high quality CG. Like it's really fantastic stuff. And maybe most of the cutscenes in 3 look like they were all done with like in-game models and not especially well in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt a little deflating at the end of this trilogy for like some aspects of the game to feel pretty reduced. And like, I don't know if it's worth getting into, like looking at IO going fully independent and getting the Hitman IP back, and like they're having to self-fund everything now. Like, it's easy to draw conclusions about, what the scope of their budget was and stuff like that, which may or may not be accurate, but something about it, as much as I enjoyed Hitman 3, there was something about it that was a little underwhelming after the last two games.
Yeah, I think if Hitman 3 had come out as an isolated package, it would be that. I think Hitman 3 as a platform for the other games as well. I mean, it doesn't necessarily just come with it, but being what it is in total, it's hard for me to like isolate Hitman 3 out from everything else that's Hitman. It just feels so integrated.
I understand that. You do have to remember you have to pay extra for those.
That's
though.
what I mean. Like it is not just that.
Yeah.
So that's I'm trying to think of Hitman 3 on its own.
Right. It feels a little thin.
It's a little thin, and I think that scanning mechanic is not necessary really to add more Hitman stuff.
The camera
stuff is like but it's got some fun levels. This is the part of the game of the year I don't like, which is trying to find flaws in really great games to move stuff around on here. But yeah, if asked out of these things, of the ones that I have on my list, it is the next one up, literally numerically, that has not been cut. And that is why. I will pose the same question to you. Do you guys have a thing on here that you do not feel as strongly about that was on your own list that you would cut?
Unfortunately for me, the two that are just me here are also like practically at the top of my list. So,
well, you can go things that are on. I mean, Hitman is on your list. It's on everybody's list, right?
Right.
So you can go things.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I brought up Deathloop, because it seemed like everybody like cooled pretty hard on Deathloop.
I definitely cooled very hard on Deathloop.
By now,
I cooled, but it was still pretty warm.
Yeah, it is really creative. Somebody say something.
Somebody else pick a game that they would want to chop off.
I think my pick for this, and it's nothing against you, Brad, but I think Bowser's Fury is the one I feel the least about on this list.
Oh, that thing was so joyous. I guess I can see it. Vinny, you also don't.
I don't have it for Bowser's Fury, but
any affection.
But again, like if you've got it for Bowser's Fury in a way that you want to keep on, I will respect that. And
I mean, I don't know. It's the most excited I've been about a Mario game in years, but just because it felt like something different. But I guess I can see it going here.
What this is really telling me is like there's no way we're doing just a 5 here.
Yeah.
we are absolutely doing a 10.
That's exactly why I was pushing for a 10.
Yeah, like we are in a 10. It's amazing how 10 great games come out every year.
Yeah, it's funny. It works out perfectly, evenly all the time. Is Ratchet definitely on here?
I think so. It's my number 3 overall.
Yeah, I think Ratchet's on there for me. Ratchet is my number 5. Like it's just a great game,
Yeah.
Like
I don't disagree, but it didn't make my list because it is kind of another great Ratchet game.
Yeah. I don't think it's doing anything, one particular thing super well. It just does a bunch of stuff really well. And it's like a blockbuster. It's a definition of like blockbuster video game. It is all the high budget stuff you would expect from that. And I think it's fun as hell to play and looks great. And probably the thing on my PS5 that I was like, okay, cool. Like I get it. This is a PS5.
I think Ratchet rules. I think it should be on the list.
Or Ratchet just rules. It should be on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I just inherently always lean toward like new, like stuff that feels like it's kind of experimental in some way, or something I haven't seen before versus something that is just executed really well. But It's just a matter of taste.
I mean, Ratchet's trying to push technology stuff in certain ways with this fast loading. It's trying to exploit that for some of its portal mechanics. I don't think it executes super well on it. I don't think it uses it enough, but it is trying to do that load. It is trying to show off some of the new technical features of this generation. Whether or not that comes through in its mechanics that well, some of it does, but I don't think it's that flashy.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, it was interesting to see once, but it doesn't actually change the game much at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that probably stays on here. Let's see.
Imagine if we were doing this as a top 5.
That's what
Is there
I'm
anything
saying.
on here? Is there anything on here that only one of you has?
Am I the only one that has Forgotten City on it?
Currently, yes. If I had finished it, it might be on my top 10.
I think it's a hell of a game. I'd love to see it make this list.
That's kind of how I feel about it too.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like the easy answer is to just cut Bowser and Boomerang X because nobody else has those.
Well, no, you don't have to cut both. We only need to cut one. To have a 10.
Oh, right. We are at 11. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you love Boomerang X. I would never ask you to cut it.
And that's the thing. I liked Boomerang X too. It didn't make my list, but I think that game's really cool.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like we should probably cut Bowser's Fury then. Like if Fights in Tight Spaces wasn't your number one, I would suggest like maybe that didn't belong, but it being your number one obviously carries some weight. All right. I guess I can let go of Bowser's Fury. But still, I would take that over Hitman, I think. But I'll.
If you wanted to push for it over Hitman, I would support you in there only because, as I said, I really like Hitman. I don't think it's my favorite Hitman. It's very good.
It's not my favorite Hitman either. But I think it's still really good ass Hitman, and I think it was absolutely one of the 10 most interesting games this year by far.
Yeah, let's just cut Mario.
Okay.
This really just reveals how arbitrary this whole process is.
It is.
Okay. I'm going to read this list off right now. That leaves us with 10 games that are Hitman 3, Fights in Tight Spaces, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Boomerang X, Forgotten City, Psychonauts 2, Deathloop, Inscryption, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Unpacking. And those are in no particular order, but those are the games on this list. On a 10 list.
I like looking at this list, I got to tell you.
I'm gonna add these games to this list here, and we can start trying to shuffle things around as we go. So we got fights. We
can always do the mathematical approach.
Oh, you gotta go with your gut. I'm gonna write these down in no particular order. So we have Hitman 3. Why don't you guys read them off to me one more time? So we have Hitman 3, Ratchet,
Fights in Tight Spaces already there. Ratchet. Boomerang X. Forgotten City.
Boomerang X, one word.
No.
Yes. Well, no, not the X.
Forgotten City. Okay.
Deathloop. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians.
And Unpacking.
Galaxy. All right. These are good games.
They are good games.
Unpacking. So this
almost like we planned it though.
The Forgotten City. This is Rift Apart. Psychonauts 2, no subtitle, right? No.
No.
And this is to stay on brand, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. All right.
I'm going to propose, what if we just sort of loosely order these with our favorites at the top?
I think that's a good way to do it.
Honestly. All
right.
I don't know.
And then we can talk about a winner when we get there.
Do you want to take care of the shuffling on this list, Brad? Do you want to be control the mouse here? I think I would probably move Hitman 3 towards the bottom here because that was close to the. That was.
It is on all of our lists, though.
It was on the bubble for this whole thing, though. Listen, Alex, it was on Brad and I's bubble for the list. Brad, it was on Brad. It was on my. It was on Brad and Mi's.
Like, I really like it. It's about middle of my list, but.
It seems like you guys are not hot on Deathloop, so I would push that one down too.
Yeah,
I would maybe me personally, I would put Hitman 3 over Deathloop, but if there is not support for that,
I would definitely. I can live with it. Actually,
okay, I'm okay with that. It's on my personal list, I wouldn't do that, but on a consensus list,
Yeah, I didn't do that on my personal list either. Actually. Oh, wait. No. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I did do that. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I was.
Yeah. So let's see. I would probably push Guardians up, at least middle of the pack for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same about
along with Unpacking. Yep.
Yeah, I think both of those can kind of go middle of the road right now. I might keep Forgotten City where it is, and I might put Boomerang X in that same general vicinity.
Like in between Unpacking, like move Guardians up.
Like
basically.
maybe. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it to the people who got further into Forgotten City, but I think Boomerang X is a game I liked a lot. It just didn't make my top 10. Brad, obviously, it ranked pretty high in yours. I feel like I could see it being above Forgotten City on that list.
Yeah, I could too.
I would put it over Unpacking for that matter.
If again, this is one of those things where I know you really love Boomerang X. I think you love it more than I love Unpacking or Forgotten City.
Yeah, like I mean, I love Unpacking, but it kind of ran its course by the end. Whereas, like, I finished Boomerang X and just wanted more.
I mean, if you
just immediately started a New Game Plus, which I never do.
I mean, you've said it.
I could live with it.
You've said it yourself. Boomerang X is a mechanics game,
dude. It is
so
a
Brad
good.
Ass
It
Brad
is so
game.
tightly designed. It feels so good when you're really just in the flow. Like it really nails that old school Quake feeling.
Like
I'm absolutely cool with that sitting over Unpacking.
Like we have different tastes for sure. I know you like the mechanic stuff, and that is like a tuned game. That is like a
yeah. I can't think of much or anything I would change about it.
Okay,
I actually think maybe this is the list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go
We'll
to the
talk
math.
about winner in a second.
I'm not going to go to the math for it. I really don't think Ratchet should be that high.
I could put Guardians over Ratchet, honestly. Like I think
like I have Ratchet over Guardians, but it's by one spot. You know, like it's not a make or break thing for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I totally recognize how well made Ratchet is. It just didn't feel like anything I hadn't played before. I mean,
Number 5 is still a really strong spot for it.
Obviously, there are a ton of like little details that are different, but just the overall what makes a Ratchet game felt very familiar.
Yeah, like I said, I think and I'm not knocking it. It's just a very well made video game, and like I don't think you're gonna I don't think there are gonna be a lot of thought pieces on Ratchet and Clank. I think there's a lot more to think about in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like there's a lot more to chew on there. But I think Ratchet's a lot of fun. It's just, sometimes a video game is just fun. It's just a fun, well-made game. Also has a decent difficulty curve on it to make it pretty, as my kids were playing it, like I noticed they were able to make it through it as well.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to argue for Fights in Tight Spaces above number 3. I think since it's only on my list, it is my number 1. I'm fine with it being the number 3.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, whatever. Again, not worth going to the mat over. Like, there is an argument that it could slide down since Vinny and I don't have any real
I like
love
it.
for it.
I like it. I played a decent amount of it over actually since last weekend, and I get it for sure. Like it's fun. I find it really hard. Like
it is.
Like I find it extremely difficult.
And I think that's kind of what I fixated on with it in the similar way that Into the Breach is a hard game. Like the things you do in it are not super difficult to understand, but making progress is a thing that you just kind of have to beat your head against over and over and over again in that way. And it hit that same brain spot for me that like an Into the Breach did. And I think that it does it in a really interesting and inventive way. And that is why it stuck with me for pretty much the entirety of this year.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got it installed. I would check it out, actually.
It's my problem I've had with it playing it is, again, I'm doing it with the rollbacks and the restart to level, thank goodness. Like, you wind up in a situation where you just have too little health to make it through a room.
Yep.
And I will just keep trying to bang my head against that room. And that's actually kind of fun to solve a room with 5 health, right? Where you just can't get hit to do a perfect run. But that's tough. So I think bottom of this list, I'm okay with. I would personally obviously do shuffling around, and that's why I have a top 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would too, for sure. But
I think in terms of this group,
I would probably move the top 3 all up over some other stuff. But,
yeah.
Rankings,
Yeah. How do they work?
Are
we talking about between Psychonauts 2 and Inscryption
I think
here
we're
for our
talking
game of
between
the year?
Psychonauts 2 and Inscryption. I think even though I have Psychonauts 2 as my number 1, I could easily see Inscryption be our number 1 game of the year.
Let me put it this way. I don't have Inscryption on my list at all, and I could still see it winning.
Hey, what if we just try putting Inscryption number 1 and see what happens?
I'd like to talk through it before we do, but
no, of course, yeah.
Yeah. But I think Psychonauts 2 for me is, there are so many ways I imagined that game disappointing, because the first game is a game that I hold up in very high regard in my memory of it. It is a game that has certainly aged, but I think that at the time, especially for a game that essentially got canceled and brought back, Psychonauts 2 was a wonderful surprise, or Psychonauts 1 was a wonderful surprise when it came out. And I just, with the long development history, the crowdfunding, sort of the uncertainty about what that game was going to turn into ultimately. Because you remember, Vinny, you and I saw that game at E3 and we watched that demo and we were like, yeah, I don't know, that seems neat, but I can't say that either of us walked out of there being like, oh man, this is going to be the shit when this comes out,
I was very concerned about it.
All the perception anybody had of that was like, well, I guess they're going to make another Psychonauts. Like, it'll be more of that. That's cool, I guess.
Yeah, and the Microsoft buyout happened. They got some time to finish that thing up. And I think that time probably went a long way to making that game better.
I think they've all but said, or maybe have said, that Microsoft buyout allowed them to actually make that game what they wanted it to be.
Yeah,
and not have
the game they wanted it to be rules. Like it is a genuinely heartfelt, well designed, inventive. Yes, it's a throwback action platformer, but it feels like it escalates everything from the first game in really interesting ways that feels modern. And again, the only issue I really had with that game was the fact that the mapping of the powers. I think that they didn't find a perfect solution for that.
Yeah.
And it's not unbearable. It's something I got used to eventually, but it is something that I think, it was the only thing about that game that I thought was a little bit of a drag.
Yep. Even down to getting collectibles and stuff still was satisfying for me.
Yeah, it's weird getting I can't remember what you call the little floating holograms.
The figments,
figments. That was weirdly kind of addicting and satisfying to try to get all those.
Yeah, the luggage, all the stuff in the levels. It's fun. I was, bummed out when I couldn't get more. Upgrade tree stuff was fun. The spending the points to get certain things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, some of it, I feel like at some point, certain fewer things felt as important. I wish there were more things that felt valuable for upgrading. There wasn't enough in the upgrade tree to make me really excited about upgrades after a bit. At some point, I was just dropping points in to be like, oh, I have the points, I'll go into it. But
might as well use them.
Yeah, might as well use them. But it's just a fun romp. It's a and some of my favorite games this year are just fun romps. I've got Ratchet, I've got Marvel, I've got Psychonauts on my list. They're just, I
think we needed romps this year. I think this was a year where it's again, there was hope that we would be able to get out more into the world and things would return to more normalcy, and we just didn't really ever get there. And I think having some just good fucking times in video games was valuable.
So that all being said about Psychonauts 2,
Inscryption
sounds
incredible.
I just wanted to say Psychonauts feels like a game that defied the odds.
Oh, for
very
sure.
much so.
It feels like a game that was just going to come and go when it released.
Yes.
And kind of nobody gave it credit for what it would eventually be.
It would be very high on if we had a defied expectations category.
Yes, I actually was going to say that earlier. If we still had a sort of best surprise style category, it would 100% be that.
I think Guardians would be in that one, near that one.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah, sure.
For me, but
Guardians is more it didn't really have anything working against it, where it felt like Psychonauts had the whole deck stacked against it somehow.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is I don't think that's true, because the thing Guardians had stacked against it is Avengers came out the year before. and might have not completely salted the earth for Marvel stuff, but it definitely like left a bad taste in people's mouths. And I feel like the appetite was not there.
Sure.
And it also did not show well at all.
No, it didn't.
But that is kind of adjacent to the point of Psychonauts 2. Well, Psychonauts 2 actually delivering.
Yes.
And so for my list, I'll just say this. If you're listening to this now, I am still pretty close to flopping Inscryption and Psychonauts 2 on my list.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That I did not know.
It's not Psychonauts 2 by a mile. It's Psychonauts 2.
It's a very close race.
It's a pretty close one. And it's Psychonauts 2 on an end of the day of like, I think I just enjoyed my time overall with Psychonauts 2 in terms of like, it's a hard one because they're so different.
Right.
You know, like, are you supposed to enjoy your time with Inscryption? I'm not sure. You might supposed to be coming away feeling uncomfortable. But I think at the end of the day,
it's supposed to melt your mind, man.
When I was making my list, I was like, man, I just really like Psychonauts 2. Like, it was just a really overall, I think that might be the number one experience I had in terms of walking away and enjoying it. But
yeah, I think that's how you have to make a top 10. Honestly, that's how I've always done it.
It's like very gut, right?
Not try to think too hard or reason the choices out, and just sort of like, yeah, exactly. Just sort of feel what you feel about each game.
But Inscryption, I mean, I could go on. I could make a case for Inscryption beating at my own list, right? Like the pieces are there, the cards are in my hand, the pun intended, to beat that. To beat Psychonauts 2 at my own list.
You've got that Ouroboros powered up.
There are parts of Inscryption where aside from the narrative stuff it's doing, aside from the clever gameplay, aside from the just amazing atmosphere stuff, there are parts where it feels like you are breaking the game by having certain power-ups in hands.
Yes.
Because you have a mechanic in the early game, at least, where you get to make your own card. And when you can pick the cost of that card to be like 1 blood cost, but it comes back if you use it, but it's got a 10 power. Dude. And you're like, this card is going to get me through that's so awesome.
That is quietly one of the best things about that game, because like I got so frustrated every time I would see somebody say like, oh, I don't like card games, or oh, I'm not good at card games, because you don't want to spoil it for them, but I also want to be like it's built into the game to break the game.
Yeah. Like,
sorry, I gotta get the delivery. Sorry.
Okay, no, we're gonna just rearrange the list. Okay, so put fights in tight spaces.
Okay, let's take Boomerang X off, and we're gonna put Lost Judgment back on.
We had to do all that Boomerang X off. Yeah. My goodness, take that off. We'll put Marvel and Ratchet and fights all the way up there, and keep Psychonauts up there. Inscryption is a very unique. I'm gonna say near one of a kind experience that deserves to be at the top of this list, if not near the top of this list. Like, it's you just don't get a lot of things like Inscryption too often. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, and I think if I had liked the card battling aspect of that game more, that could have carried me to a place where I am right there with you guys on this stuff. Because I think that, all the things you've described, the stuff I've gone back and read and watched people play of that game, fascinating the way they have constructed that thing and what they have chosen to do with it. The card battling was just a hump I could not fully get over, because I did not enjoy it. It just did, like, even the weird meta stuff around it, like, the actual act of playing it and engaging with those systems just did not do it for me. But that's a personal thing. I don't think it's a bad card game. It just didn't work for me. I actually wound up really liking the card stuff. There's a middle section there which I didn't love as much, but that early game card stuff I really enjoyed it. It's the mechanics are good. I would probably play that physical card game if they released it. I mean, it's Pokemon-esque with some of its costs. It's it's like a lot of those card games where you have a cost to play. But I think it carries on its atmosphere and its the way it integrates its graphics and its story and its music. So I can easily see this hanging out in that number one spot. Brad comes back, yeah.
And if
I think the arguments you guys have made about that game throughout the year, and the effusiveness with which you have talked about it throughout, like, you guys were so excited to spoil the shit out of that game on the podcast when you had both gotten there.
Yeah,
like, I think for like, even though it's not on my list, like I think the argument there is strong for Inscryption for being kind of the overall pick.
Yeah, it would almost seem weird for it not to be.
Well, I'm back, and I guess I don't have much convincing to do with it.
No, I mean it's it's a game that I think captured at least me and you, Brad, and to some extent you, Alex, in a way that is rare to see.
Do you remember that morning? Like it came out on podcast day.
Yes, I should
just
find
at the
that
last, like should like screenshot that Slack conversation.
Yeah.
Where I just went on there like, oh, by the way, like this game, this Inscryption card game that just came out this morning is getting some buzz. Maybe we should like check that out before the podcast. And then like 45 minutes later, just losing our shit, just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to do this podcast. I just want to keep playing this.
I think both of us were like, I think Inscryption's kind of amazing. You're like, yes, Inscryption's kind of amazing.
Just real quick, I was going to finish my thought. Like, they build in all those ways in that first act to break the card game because I think they want, they care more about telling you the story and showing you all the stuff they've come up with than they do like challenging you with a super hard card game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's like intentionally built into the design to just let you crack that thing wide open. And like, that feels so good. Like it feels really good and everybody does it slightly differently,
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about it early on in that middle section, pre end game stuff. I didn't mind it as much. Like it definitely drags a little bit. The kind of the
8-bit like action stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it either. I mean, it's definitely my least favorite part of the game, but I don't mind it.
Yeah.
The thing that really sold it for me though is I've never played any of the old Game Boy Pokemon card games.
Mm-hmm.
But people that have, I think they're card games, right? Has anybody played those here?
I haven't.
I mean, I played the Pokemon tabletop game.
I guess I think there were Game Boy games that were Pokemon games, but I think there was I forget. I don't think they were just Pokemon games. Anyway, point being, people like on our Discord and elsewhere that I've seen that have like real nostalgia for those games, like they went apeshit over Act 2 in that game. Like for the people who were who revere the reference point for that act, like it hit really hard for them. And like that made me admire it, even though it wasn't really something that I had a connection to.
I don't remember that stuff, but like I was telling Alex, you weren't here for a second. I would play the physical version of this game, like that early card game.
They're pretty easy to find people on Twitter who are working on that exact thing right now. They're just like, I'm making woodcut prints of all these cards. I'm going to start like manufacturing them. The other thing, I don't know if have you seen this Casey's Mod business that Daniel Mullins is developing?
I know you talked about it, but I haven't seen it.
Like I'm holding off playing it because it's still in beta and he's not done with it. I just want to like get the whole thing once he's finished. But I mean, he is turning that first act into a kind of endless, legit card game, and I'm super excited to play that too. Even though it's like totally sort of divorced from the spirit of the actual game.
I found our Slack thread. If can I kind of read it here?
Sure. Go for it.
You said Inscryption is getting a ton of good buzz. Kind of last minute here, and I said, downloading Inscryption now to check it out. And then I said, Inscryption seems pretty rad. And you said, this is awesome. And then your next thing is your Stoat card talking to you?
Oh boy.
I won't read the kind of where it goes from there, but that's pretty good.
Extremely typical experience.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm okay. I'm good with that Inscryption being then I'm going to just say we go on for like another hour just talking back and forth about different stuff that is in that early game.
Totally. Like I am not a big card game guy at all. Like I don't mind them, but I don't seek them out. But like this game just hooked me harder than anything has hooked me in a long time.
And it's got FMV.
I love the swings it takes. I really do.
All right. I'm okay with Inscryption being number 1 on there. Should we put numbers next to these?
I think so.
Sure.
Might as well.
Okay.
I think we have an order that I can get behind.
Hey, check this out.
Okay.
It's a trick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put numbers next to them.
Wow.
That's a neat trick.
You've gone into Google. For those who are not seeing this, Brad has done an ordered list.
That's right.
Well, shall we read that ordered list?
Yeah. Why don't you start from number 10, Alex, and read them off?
All right, our top 10 Nextlanders top 10 games of 2021 are at number 10, Deathloop. At number 9, Hitman 3. At number 8, The Forgotten City. At number 7, Unpacking. Number 6, Boomerang X. At number 5, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. At number 4, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. At number 3, Fights in Tight Spaces. At number 2, Psychonauts 2. And at number 1, Inscryption.
Okay, I'm going to ask this.
Ask the question.
Does this look okay if we made this a top 5? Or would you shuffle stuff around? And this is a thought experiment, not that we're doing it. I am just curious because I was looking at it being like, I wonder if I would actually move stuff around if we did a top 5.
I absolutely would.
Yeah.
100%.
I don't, but
See, I wouldn't.
I don't know. A top 5 of Inscryption, Psychonauts, Fights in Tight Spaces, Guardians, and Ratchet.
See, for example, I think Forgotten City is okay at number 8 because it made it onto a list.
Yeah.
But I would, for example, say that maybe Forgotten City deserves to be in a top 5 if it's not going to be a 10.
So I hear you on that. I totally hear you on that. Yeah, should I, Marvel is great and it's one of my favorite games this year. But if you're going to say that Forgotten's not going to get its, would I move, or Unpacking's not going to get its?
Both of those I feel like are strong top 5 material, but because they made it into a top 10, I'm like, whatever.
Sorry, Alex, what were you going to say?
It's an honor.
I was going to say, I really like the spread of games we have on this top 10. I generally like the way they are ordered. Even the ones that I wouldn't have necessarily picked myself, I think they are representative in a way that is, representative of our year in video games, and not just in stuff we stream, but stuff that meant something to us for various reasons.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And I think that this top 10 is a very strong one, and I can put my stamp of approval on it.
It is a good list. I want this in this document though that we're in, so we'll not play on audio. I wanted to align Deathloop with the.
Yeah.
Why is
it's
it not
something
doing
about
that?
the doc does that for some reason. I don't know why.
The way Google Docs is not justifying all the titles evenly is making me crazy. We have to move on.
Just gonna make this a top 9 if it keeps doing this. I can't brook this.
Yes.
It's the 1 is lined up with the 9.
It's terrible.
Okay.
It's terrible.
It's why on my top 10 list at the thing I put zeros in front because I just could not deal with. Anyway, leading zeros is the only way to solve it.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for the show. Let's run down one more time here from the top very quickly. Our categories and our list of stuff here. Just a recap of Nextlander's complete business here.
Our big picks.
We'll just start with best looking game here. We'll just go around the horn. I'll start reading off best looking game. Best looking game. Kenna Bridge of Spirits was Vinny's pick. Inscryption was Brad's pick. Guardians of the Galaxy, Alex's pick. Brad, why don't you go next? We'll just bounce around here.
Wait, that came out this year. Unanimously decided to be Outriders. Also Hitman 3 and Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury.
Okay.
For best throwback action platformer, Vinny and I chose Psychonauts 2. Brad went with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and we also wanted to recognize Kenna Bridge of Spirits.
Best Hitman 3 map, Dartmoor, Alex and Vinny, Berlin, Brad, and the Carpathian Mountain / Murder Train also making the list.
Best music is Inscryption, according to everyone. Psychonauts 2 and Jett the Far Shore also have pretty good music.
Damn right. Best character of the year, Vinny and I chose Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. Brad went with Leshy from Inscryption, and we also wanted to recognize Alex Chen from Life is Strange: True Colors.
Zestiest Joie de Vivre is The Artful Escape for Brad, Unpacking for Vinny and Alex, and Toem also making the list.
That's right. Best Time Loop, Deathloop, Outer Wilds, Echoes of the Eye, and the unanimous number 1 of The Forgotten City.
Good time.
The I Wish I Liked It More award goes to, for myself and Vinny, Jett the Far Shore. For Brad, it was 12 minutes, and we also recognize The Chicory, A Colorful Tale, a neat game. We just wish we liked it a little more.
And then finally, in our category awards, we have Best Story with Inscryption for Brad, The Forgotten City for Vinny, and Psychonauts 2 for Alex, which brings us back down to our overall top 10. And in case you missed it, one more time, starting from number 10, Deathloop, number 9, Hitman 3, number 8, The Forgotten City, number 7, Unpacking, number 6, Boomerang X, number 5, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, number 4, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, number 3, Fights in Tight Spaces, number 2, Psychonauts 2, and number 1, Inscryption, and you.
That's right. The viewer.
And you, the viewer, listening. That's going to do it for Nextlander's first top 10. Wow.
So that's what this Game of the Year thing is like.
I know.
I've heard so much about it.
So much. Like,
made it out to sound like it was so painful, so horrible to do, but I feel like
it's moderately sweaty. It's like
I'm in a good mood right now.
Kind of sweaty in this room, but like, I don't know. People's like sweaty room. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's great to do this. Great to do this with you guys. I enjoyed this format. I enjoyed not having the having to knife it out and tear down games to get something to be a singular choice. Also, yeah,
too old for that shit.
That's right. A celebration of games, not a tearing down of games. Also, first time out doing this format. Interesting to see how it played out time wise in terms of number of episodes and that stuff. So maybe stuff will be a little bit different next time. I don't know.
Ranking stuff always longer than you think.
Always longer than you think. Too many good games out there. Hopefully 2022, maybe it'll be 10 episodes because the games will be that good.
It'll be 10 episodes. Why don't we just look and see?
That's right.
Yeah,
let's if we can take a quick look into the future here and have maybe you guys could each pull out what you think you'd be looking most forward to.
Well, if you're a patron who has heard our Planorama for the month of January 2022, you know there's not a ton in January 2022 going on.
No, not a ton.
Unless you're into Windjammers 2 or Clancy.
Or God of War on the PC.
Let's see here. In February, I am still very much looking forward to Dying Light 2. I know there's been a ton of mess around that game's development, but previews that have come out, I haven't played a preview build, but I've read previews that say it very much has that core parkour and like really interesting first-person melee stuff there, and the day-night stuff, and like that. I still think Dying Light 1 is one of the most underappreciated games of last generation. And so hearing that the core elements are still in place makes me very optimistic, let's say, that it'll be good.
All right.
I want to see Sifu.
Yeah, Sifu's on my list as well. I'm really curious about that one.
Yeah, Sifu looks cool.
I want to see that.
I love good martial arts stuff. I mean, granted, Fights in Tight Spaces was my favorite game. And, I think that they seem like they have a really interesting approach to how the fighting in that game works. And also how, time and injuries can build up on your character in an interesting way. So I think that could be cool.
Absolver was really interesting. So
I also want to see Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like more with you the closer we get to it. I don't know. It's weird. Like,
it's also like Horizon 1 is one I would absolutely put in that I wish I liked it more category. So I'm like, I have some trepidation, but at the same time, it could be good. I don't know.
I really like Horizon.
I mean, I played the shit out of the first Horizon. Like, I really liked it, but there were also parts of it I thought could have been better. Like, specifically the combat design had like so much promise, but I felt like it was only like 80% of the way to where it needed to be. So I think that's actually what I'm most optimistic about, is that I hope that they have evolved the combat to like really be the thing it can be.
My biggest worry is the narrative pushed me through Horizon, and I don't think we need another Horizon.
I'm super with you on that one. Like revealing all the reveals of that is what kept that thing going.
Yeah.
And now that that's all done, we'll see. I'm hopeful that they found an interesting story there.
Yeah.
Another one I'm actually really excited for is the Witch Queen, Destiny 2's Witch Queen expansion.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I've gotten enough Destiny 2 to know when it's good Destiny, it's really good.
It's pretty good.
So this seems like a bunch of meat on that one. So
they are billing it as a huge expansion. I'm curious about it. I don't know. I have never drifted further from Destiny's light than I am right now. So I'll check it out. But
that's good because I think the story is like people who are the dark side, isn't it? Isn't it like all like the
darkness?
The darkness, and
is this where the darkness is showing up finally?
All the dark shards, and like
they sort of did before, I guess, but maybe even more this time.
I mean, you got all those like weird dark powers now, right? Embrace the darkness.
Yeah.
Anybody
want I will float?
Yeah, please.
Now that they have officially walked back that whole stupid ass NFT thing they were on for about 48 hours, Stalker 2.
Oh yeah.
Oh sure.
Stalker 2 looks rad.
Stalker 1 is one of those games that like I always wanted to really get into but just never did. I obviously love the Stalker movie. And the first showing of that game was genuinely very impressive. That first little like teaser they did. So I want to see what that game is. I want to see if I take to it. Bless them for walking that back, though I'm sure they mostly just did it because they didn't want to get yelled at anymore.
Yeah. I think Elden Ring goes without saying.
Yeah.
There's
Saints Row.
Yeah, that could push further into the year, but that could be. I want to see what a new Saints Row looks like.
Yes. Let's see. There's one I'm forgetting now that I was going to mention. Tunic. Looks cool. Tunic has been in development for ages and is almost out. And you played some of that, right, Alex? That demo?
Yeah, I've played some of the demo.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it before. I really am looking forward to that game for sure.
The look of that game is just fantastic. I'm really looking forward to trying that.
It's another one of those like long labor of love games.
Yes.
I'm already into like June at this point, and I'm not seeing.
How about Stray? Remember Stray, the cat game?
Oh yeah,
yeah. The last time they put out some gameplay footage of that, it looked maybe a little less interesting than I thought it might be.
I'm still interested.
The world looks amazing. Like the world looks extremely intriguing. It had like a kind of very standard like puzzle platformer kind of thing going on in the gameplay. Once I got a look at it,
yeah.
But yes, it does look interesting.
I'm interested in Redfall.
Yeah.
In that vein of the, sort of the co-op experiences, I think that game could be cool.
That's the Arcane
vampire one.
PvE vampire.
Oh, okay. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool. They haven't shown any gameplay yet officially. I think some stuff leaked out, but
Far.
I'm interested in that one.
Far Changing Tides.
Far?
Yeah, that was. Remember that? It's
that's the sequel to that game you like.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Far the Lone Shore, I think was the
right. Yes.
Tell you what, it's a lot easier looking at this stuff with the box art.
Yeah, for sure.
Forgotten a lot of the names on this stuff.
Any idea what Kingdoms of the Dump is?
I do not know what Kingdoms.
That's my bathroom.
Is that on your list by any chance?
No.
Huh.
Yeah, it starts to thin out as you get past Q1, huh?
A lot of stuff doesn't have dates yet.
Yeah.
I will totally play this Advance Wars remake, even though it's just a remake and not a new game.
Sure.
I will too, because I never got into Advance Wars before, and I've always wanted to.
Advance Wars rules, and Advance Wars fans
better time?
Will take what they can get at this point.
Any fans for that Forspoken?
I'm not sure yet about that one.
Not as hot,
maybe.
Huh? Okay.
I feel like I'm
just not sure about it. I don't really know enough about it at this point.
That's a real wait and see. Like the action looks pretty standard third person magical combat type stuff. I will give it a shot for sure.
Yeah, we could be chewing on our words for all we know.
Honestly, I mean, like some people will probably groan at this. I mean, maybe I'm being too sensitive, but like Starfield might be.
I figured that's how we were going to close this bit out.
Starfield might be my most anticipated / most curious about game.
I'm with you, and despite the fact that I am not a big Bethesda Fallout fan. I did not really like 4 at all. And,
I mean, I think that's pretty common, actually.
And even the Elder Scrolls stuff is not necessarily my wheelhouse, but I am dying to see what their take on something like that in a completely different universe is.
That's totally it, is like seeing that their style of game with this completely different setting. And like it's been a long time since Fallout 4. I feel like we ask this question every time they put out a game. Like, has anything changed in terms of like bugs or scripting jank or
Mhm.
even just like mushy feeling combat? Like, what have they changed? Like, have they finally evolved the things that are not as great about their games to match the things that are?
I think I'm also very curious about it, and I have kind of fallen off that formula for a while, but I think the worst they could do is take what they've done and just put it in space. Like if they don't change something up and be like, this is the next 15 years of Bethesda open world games, be like, okay.
It needs to have an ambition beyond
even
that.
if it's smaller and it's something new, I'm okay with that. But I don't need, oh man, those things were just falling apart at the seams. Those games.
Yeah, I just like it's been so long though. By the time that game comes out, it'll have been 7 years since Fallout 4. So like that's a long time for them. Like I'm just dying to see what they've done in that time.
They got bought in that whole time.
Right.
That's look what happened to Psychonauts 2. You never know.
Yeah. Like maybe Microsoft's throwing all these extra resources at them.
I mean, I have to think Microsoft is looking at that being like, you need to make the next Skyrim. Like we need Skyrim again.
This needs to be the most must-play game ever made.
Yes. Right. And I mean, is that thing announced for PC, Xbox only at this point? Or
yes. Like kind of in perpetuity. Like they haven't literally come out and said this will never, ever, ever be on PlayStation, but they've all but said it. I
mean, at some point they will put it on Switch, PlayStation, your back of your seat at a airline plane because they want to get it out there.
They'll be happy to put it on anything that Game Pass runs on.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly.
Or xCloud, I should say.
I mean, those are the games, and you bring up we don't know what the stories are going to be for 2022. Where will Game Pass be on my TV next time we do this? Will the Steam, what is it called? The Steam Express, the Steam box?
Deck.
Steam Deck. What will the story of the Steam Deck be? Will I finally buy an Nvidia Shield and get rid of my Steam Link? I was very close a couple of days ago.
It's kind of skimming this list here. Bayonetta 3 might be out this year, I think, probably.
They did just show a proof of life of that thing, so I could see it.
I think that might actually happen. I don't know. Arc Raiders says it's on here for this. Oh, the trailer said this year. I am dying to play Arc Raiders.
Which one is that?
It's the Embark Studio one. It was the game. It was the trailer at the Game Awards that had that Robin song playing, and it's like, it's the Simon Stollenhag looking like PvE against giant robots with like synth pop.
They also need a better name, but yes,
Arc Raiders is maybe not the most memorable, but the game looks so cool.
Good logo, though, I will say.
Yeah, good logo.
Rainbow logo.
That studio has got some amazing tech going on, like across the board, that I'm dying to see applied in a game. Let's see.
Totally.
See if there's anything else on this list that really jumps out. That doesn't.
I didn't see too much else.
There's not a lot of other stuff.
I have a real morbid curiosity about the next WWE game, but it's not because I think it's going to be good. It's because it's the only time they've ever delayed one of those games, and also the only time they went a year not putting one out. And it's actually been it's been a year and a half since the last one came out. So I'm kind of curious to see what shape that thing is in, but I wouldn't say it's because I'm looking forward to being good. Also, that AEW game is supposed to come out this year, but they haven't said when.
That might be good.
You think
it could be?
You think and rest in peace, John Madden. Do you think they do a very special Madden next year with some kind of like?
If it was any company but EA, I would say yes, and I think they will do something. But whether it is a satisfying something, I don't know.
Okay.
Ghostwire Tokyo doesn't have a date, but I'm sure that will be out this year.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
God of War Ragnarok, maybe.
Yeah, but Spider-Man is not, right?
No,
that's 23.
No, that's next year.
Okay. Spider-Man 2 is 23, and Wolverine doesn't have a date or even a year.
Okay.
And I don't see a ton else here that jumps out as huge.
There'll be the Inscryption.
Things will come along,
and the all the other things that pop up. So
this is just what we're looking forward to right now.
Yeah,
video games,
announce stuff. So join us for all those things and all the surprises and all the playings of games. I think that's going to wrap up the show here. I think
we do have one more thing to do.
We're closing in on our 3 hours. Yes, we do have one more thing. Why don't you guys set this one up while I pull it up here?
As you all know, we are patron supported.
That's right.
And we greatly appreciate all of the people who come out here and support us at any tier. But as part of the Mysterious Benefactor tier, You get your name read on this here podcast every dang week.
As a show of thanks.
Yes. Because we really appreciate it.
Yes. And I couldn't have said it better myself. But the only thing I can do at this point is read these names.
Why don't you read those names, Vinny?
Yeah. So again, thanks to everybody who has supported us in 2021. And thanks to everyone who is supporting us in 2022 and beyond. And now I'm going to read these mysterious benefactors, starting with Evan Poon, No One, Vinny's Giant Booga Boogas, Nelson LeBlanc, James Smith, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Sean Miller, Jack Einecker, Nick Donegan, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, JM, Jerry Lee, Gary Pejke, Conrad Kuzmin, Robert Fisher, Joseph Reagan, John McInnes, Hashtag Bunny Crimes, Onion Pete, Peter Reardon, Thomas Lynn, Jad Rita, Statics, Andrew Jackson, Bacon Monk, Chris Barkhurst, Anders Bouget, Booga, 2022. Bug. Devin Maestro Hall, Brian Murphy, Kevin Villado, Randy Duax, Mark Allenbach, Aaron Gonzalez Beer, Andrew Teepkin, It Me JP, Edward Cheek, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Richard Welsh, aka Hired Noobs, Matthew Herrig, Rick Button, and Tyler Treese. Thank you, everyone.
You to all.
If you want to support us, you can go over to patreon.com/Nextlander, or you could just watch our stuff over on Twitch, YouTube, listen to our podcast, support us.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. But don't
tell your enemies.
Don't tell your enemies to come message me. Tell your friends they can come. We can talk about Transformers, whatever you want. Yeah, but thanks everybody for making Nextlander super special and keeping us going and reminding us of why we do this, because it's an awesome community to hang out and talk about games with people who are also awesome. It's really the heart of it, right?
Yes.
So thanks everybody for 2021. Here's to 2022. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Alex.
One quick addendum I would just like to add here before we end things for a game of the year and launch ourselves into 2022. If you would like to read about our individual top 10s, we will be posting them on Thursday, the day this goes up for everyone, on Nextlander.com, the Patreon page. We'll have posts for all of our top 10 lists. We'll write about our games, and they will be on the site. Or the site.
Write
a
something.
thing.
Gonna write a thing.
I'm writing a thing right now.
There's something kind of comforting about it. I'm gonna write about video games. I'm gonna write about video games.
No, don't do that. That's oh man. Last time I wrote about video games, Psychonauts 2 was starting development. Ba ba boom.
Damn.
Ba ba boom 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 ba boom. Yeah, and don't be surprised when my list changes around. Yeah. The order is drastically different. But thanks everybody. We'll be back next week for more talking about video games and the ones that are coming out in 2022. So join us for that. See ya.